We are streaming live at 97.3ESPN.com through Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. What is up, everybody? Yes, indeed, a Thursday show. It was another evening in which I slept like absolute garbage. However, I'm hoping to get through this 4-hour journey together as best I can. Now, to the information at hand. Eagles schedule that we went over yesterday. How about that? It turned out to be accurate. That leaked schedule was the actual accurate schedule. So everything that we did yesterday, we'll just rehash today. How about that? All right, so much to dive into today. The schedule, some more tidbits. How about this tidbit on the Eagles schedule? And we have a poll question up at 973ESPN on Twitter. At 973ESPN on Twitter. What's going on, everybody? I'm Mike Gill. Josh Henning is producing today's show. You out there, we are kind of right, 3 games left in the NBA season for most teams. Some teams have 2. We are down the stretch. Playoff scenarios, all can be cleared up tonight. Some can be cleared up tonight, I should say, not all. But the Sixers can clear up their seeding. Atlanta, Miami, those games are big tonight. Miami, of course, hosting Philadelphia. So we got that. Phillies are in action right now. They are struggling along, trailing 4-1, I think, the last time I checked over there. So how about this scenario with the Philadelphia Eagles and the schedule that came out yesterday? And I want you to think about this and be fair. Don't just be irrational, okay? When I give you these numbers, the first thing that comes to your mind, the Eagles enter this season, according to strength of schedule win percentage, with the easiest strength of schedule based off opponent win percentage from the previous season. Their opponents have a cumulative winning percentage of .430. It is by far the easiest schedule in the NFL. So the Eagles enter this season with the easiest strength of schedule. Their opponents last year, if you combine their win-loss win percentage, had the worst winning percentage in football, a percentage of .430. So here's the number for you that I am intrigued by. 6 of the last 9 teams to enter the season with the easiest strength of schedule also made the playoffs. Will the Eagles make the playoffs? Vote now at 973ESPN on Twitter. Hit me up on the text board, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. The chat is always open for the live video stream, and of course, you can be a part of that. Now, 6 of the last 9 have the easiest schedule in the league. They have also made the playoffs. So is this a precursor to Philadelphia landing themselves in the playoffs? Why? Well, a couple of reasons. They play the easiest schedule in football based on the mathematics of last season. Now, some of those mathematics are the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons last year won 4 football games, I believe. They had the 4th pick in the draft. They're one of the worst teams in the league. They're on your schedule. The San Francisco 49ers. This is where it's skewed a little bit. San Francisco was 6-10. Why were they 6-10? Well, if you're going to use the same excuse for San Francisco, don't you kind of have to use it for Philadelphia? San Francisco was the only team in football that lost more player games to injury than Philadelphia did. Let's go to week 3. The Dallas Cowboys finished the season with a record of 6-10. Not very good. It's a .375 win percentage. Now, that is skewed. Dallas is obviously healthier this year. Dak Prescott should be back. We don't know what version of Dak Prescott we will get. It's funny. We're willing to say Dak Prescott, a skill position player, will be back and fine from his injury, But Brandon Brooks, an offensive lineman, we have concern about. Shouldn't it be the other way around with the severity of the injury that Dak Prescott had? And by the way, I don't have a lot of fear that Dak Prescott is not going to come back and be a high-quality player. I just feel like modern medicine and injuries are not the same severity that they used to be. Yeah, you could have major injuries, but I feel like in baseball, we have all these analytics that are ruining the sport. We have doctors that are helping the sports. They're making these guys who have major injuries get back faster and closer to their old selves than ever before. You hear a guy tear an ACL in the past, my gosh, he's doomed. Nah, he's back on the field in 6 months. Guy tears his Achilles, career over. Happened to Dan Marino. Happened twice to Brandon Brooks. Back out there, ready to go. Modern medicine is crazy. And as much as we like to fight it, those guys are pretty smart and they're pretty good. And that's why you believe that Dallas could be better, because you believe in the science of modern medicine to get him back on the field. And most of you aren't blinking an eye. You ask a Cowboy fan, they're excited about this year. Why? We got Dak Prescott back. Not with that injury, you shouldn't be. But, no one has concern that Dak Prescott's not going to come back and be the same guy, or very few that I've run into. Maybe that Eagles fan that's looking for a reason to kind of suppress the Cowboy hoopla. But let's be honest, many people don't even bat an eye that injury is going to slow Dak Prescott down. Here's the thing. I tell you, my buddy's a Cowboys fan. We got into this conversation yesterday. And he says, with Dak and Zeke back. And my answer to that Cowboys fan and all the Cowboys fans out there is, it's not Elliott that concerns me. The Dallas offensive line isn't like, to me, the Dallas offensive line has been overrated for a couple of years. There's a reason the Dallas Cowboys haven't been to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years. Which, by the way, this just in, newsflash, isn't very successful. If you're an NFL team and you've missed the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years, that's not a very good franchise. But it's not Dallas's Zeke Elliott. Like, I don't go into a game against Dallas and I'm like, oh, man, Zeke Elliott. Ugh. I think their offensive line has been overrated for – look, if you can't make the playoffs, especially in the NFC East, and you have, quote-unquote, the best offensive line in football, I think you're overvaluing the talent on your offensive line. If you have the best offensive line in football, like the Philadelphia Eagles did, you win the Super Bowl. You win the division. You make the playoffs. Philadelphia did 3 out of 4. Dallas missed 3 out of 4. So simply getting Dak Prescott back is a big help. But let's be honest, their offensive line has been somewhat overrated. That's why they haven't been to the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 years. And their defense, I know you're more excited about Dan Quinn than Mike Nolan, but they still need talent on the defensive side of the ball, and they are devoid of it right now. 609-403-0973. Also up next on the Philadelphia schedule, Kansas City, obviously, juggernaut, very good, going to be a tough day at the office. Next, the Carolina Panthers. Carolina last year won 5 games, not very good, a winning percentage of .313. Sam Darnold, their quarterback, was the engineer of a team that won 2 football games last year. Now, I'm not saying Darnold stinks, but he's gone from a team that won 2 games to 5. How good are the Carolina Panthers really expecting to be this year? Next up is Tampa, tough day at the office. Next up, the Vegas Raiders. Vegas last year won 8 games. Okay, average team. Is anybody looking at the Raiders and saying, oh, man, we're stuck playing the Raiders this year? I doubt it. Let's reconvene on this conversation a couple of months from now. Following the Raiders, you've got Detroit. Detroit won 5 football games last year. I know things feel better in Detroit, but they went from Matt Stafford to Jared Goff. Are you jumping from 5 to 7 to 9? Eek. So far, the Philadelphia Eagles will face a team that has won 5 games, 4 games, 2 teams that won 6. And I know you're saying, well, Philadelphia won 4. Yeah, I get it. They all have a story. San Francisco won 6. Why? They had a lot of injuries. Dallas won 6. Why? They had a lot of injuries. Atlanta won 4. Why? Well, they had a horrific defense last year. Carolina, why did they only win 5 games? Well, they didn't have very good quarterback play, and their defense wasn't anything special. Next up on the schedule, the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos last year won 5 football games. Why? Their defense was heinous. Their quarterback play is horrible. And their quarterback play hasn't changed all that much. Their quarterback that they acquired went from a 5-win team to a 5-win team. Next up, you got the Chargers, 7-9. Now, that's a team that's interesting. You got Herbert in his second year, new coach out there. That team could be making a 7-win jump from a 7-win team to maybe a 10-win team, I can see. The last couple teams, then you got the Jets on here. You got the Saints, by the way. The Saints are a team that last year won 12 games. Without Drew Brees, there's a good possibility that number jumps down, not up. You're not going from 12 to 13 or 14 with that Saints team. You're probably going down. And by the way, one of the 4 Saint losses came here in Philadelphia. So as I go over the schedule and I read that statistic, I'll read it for you again. 6 of the last 9 teams that entered the season with the easiest strength of schedule, they made the playoffs. The Eagles enter the season with the easiest strength of schedule in football. What say you? Are you revaluing or changing your predictions or thoughts on where this team could be? Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Mike, I think the Eagles are better than we think. Maybe 9 wins. Love your show. You and Josh do a great job. Make my workday better. Keep up the good work. Go Birds. Cheers. Thank you, sir. We try our best. He says, hey, Mike, I think the Eagles are better than we think. How about this? I know they're better than we think. Well, how do you know this? Simple. I mean, it's easy to see. This team last year was a 4-win team. And if I say why, the first thing everyone's going to go to is, well, they lost Lane Johnson, they lost Brandon Brooks, they lost this guy, they lost Deshaun Jackson, they lost Alshon Jeffrey. Yeah, the injuries are a clear reason why this team struggled. Secondly, Sal Powell said it, if they only had mediocre quarterback play, just mediocre quarterback play, even with all the injuries last year, they're probably a 500 team. Vegas had the over-under for wins last year at 10 for this team. 10. You don't go from 10 to 4 because they were that off. You go from 10 to 4 because something happened. That's what happens. Something monumental happens to be a Vegas predicted 10-win team and drop down to a 4-win team. Vegas doesn't get it that wrong, friends. You know that, and I know that. And this year, Vegas says 6.5. So last year, they got gun-shy. Oh, we gave you 10. You only got 4, so we'll cut that down 6.5. If they really thought this was a 4-win roster, 6.5 actually sounds like a high number. You're almost saying this team's 7-10 after being 4-11-1 just a year ago. 609-403-0973. It's the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Couple quirks to the schedule, too, in the NFC East. I will dive into those coming up in just a bit here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. So when I read that stat out to you guys, are you kind of like, that's interesting, right? Because when I read the stat, that's exactly what I said. Is that's interesting. Right now, 63% of you are reading that stat, voting at 973 ESPN on Twitter. Go ahead and vote over there. You do not think that number matters. That the Eagles enter with the easiest schedule in football. 6 of 9 teams to enter the season with the easiest strength of schedule made the playoffs. Will the Eagles make it? Right now, 63% of you are saying not buying in, still not sold. So that's interesting. Because I've been telling you for a while now, I've been sold. 2 reasons. You know the one, the offensive line. Number 2, I like the quarterback. Quite frankly, I like the quarterback. There's 2 things I definitely want to see happen still. They need to get another corner outside Darius Slay. That has to happen. It doesn't has to happen today. Just get that done. Put that on your list. Put that on the list of things to do. Find a cornerback, excuse me. Sal Paolantonio was a guest of the Sports Bash about a week ago and said this.
The quarterback doesn't turn it over at a record rate. And Carson Wentz was in many cases the 32nd ranked quarterback last year. If Jalen Hurts is the 20th or the 18th ranked quarterback and doesn't get sacked as much or get turned the ball over, the team will dramatically improve very quickly.
Dramatically improve very quickly is what he said. How do you get better quarterback play? You clean up the offensive line play. How do you get better offensive line play? Get your offensive line healthy and back. That's the big difference. That's the big key. Croce checks in. The Eagles roster is better than what everyone thinks. However, the coaching change is the only unknown. I'm excited with the new coach, but also hesitant. With Doug, you knew what you were going to get out of that roster. I think you did know what you were going to get out of that roster with Doug. The problem is, I once had an NBA front office guy tell me, I asked him about Mo Cheeks. Is he a good coach? And this is one of the things that helped me formulate my opinion on the NBA coach. And this is when Mo Cheeks was the coach of the Sixers. I said, is Mo Cheeks a good coach? And he said, if you give Mo Cheeks 48 win talent, he'll win you 48 games. If you give Mo Cheeks 38 win talent, he'll win you 38 games. If you get Mo Cheeks 58 win talent, he'll win you 58 games. It's the NBA coach is what he is. You get a 58 win roster, you're going to win 58 games. I think Doug Peterson was that guy. It's like, hey, Doug, you have a 9-win team, you're going to win 9 games. Hey, Doug, you have a 13-win team, you're going to win 13 games. Look, I think Doug had a big hand in them winning the Super Bowl. And I think the football coach is more meaningful than the NBA coach. But as you just said, you knew what you were going to get out of the roster. Doug's teams were going to go 4-5, and then they were going to get hot down the stretch. Well, why didn't that happen last year? We all kept waiting for it. Well, injury after injury after injury, and I think Doug just got what he could get out of what was left of the roster. Hey, you give me a 4-win roster, I'll give you 4 wins. And that's what they got. They got 4 wins. Why? Because by the end of the year, that's what they had left. I got NFC East schedule notes. Dallas, New York, Washington. Stick around. Jason Fitz, Keith Smith, Adam Caplan. Do you remember today? I got a good one for you. Got a couple good ones for you. I hope you'll stick around for that here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And don't forget, watch the show live on 97.3 ESPN.com. Plus the one that got away, maybe. We'll talk about that in the 3 o'clock hour. But coming up next, the Cowboys are the only team in the NFC East with this. And that's next here on the Sports Bash. All right, we're live on a Thursday, and I enjoy the back and forth we're getting on the stream. Text board is still open, 609-403-0973. Let's, what are you excited about this team? That's what I want to find out. What excites you about the upcoming season? Schedule's out. Now you know who they're going to play. I gave you a little ditty. They have the easiest schedule in football. The team with the easiest schedule in football has made the playoffs 6 out of the last 9 years. In other words, that doesn't mean you were a good team. Your schedule was kind of a nice path for you to get back to where you want to be. 609-403-0973. The text message that came in said the Eagles roster is better than everyone thinks. We'll go through that in just a bit. See if you're actually right about that. I think you are. There's a couple other things I want to know. By the way, 63% of you say 6 of the last 9 teams to enter the season with the easiest schedule made the playoffs. Will the Eagles make the playoffs? You're saying no still. Shame on you, people. No, I'm glad that you're being objective, actually. I take that back. No shame. The Cowboys play at home on Thanksgiving Day against the Raiders. They won't be home again until after Christmas on December 26th. That is 1 month and 1 day. They are the only team in the NFC East with 3 straight road games. There's a quirk in the Cowboys schedule for you. How about that? Dallas will not play at home for a month. Dallas will be on the road for the final month of the season, essentially. In the most important month of the year, they will not play at home. They will be at Washington, at the Giants, at Philadelphia, all down the stretch. On Thanksgiving Day, they play the Raiders. They play at the Saints, at Washington, at the Giants. 3 straight roadies, and close out the season against Philadelphia. As for Washington finishes the 2021 season. We talked about the Eagles. I've never seen this before. 5 straight NFC East games. 5 in a row. This is from the Elias Sports Bureau. Washington is the first team under the current division format and the first team since the 1995 Buccaneers to play 5 straight divisional games to close out the season. So Dallas is playing 3 straight road games. New Orleans, Washington, the Giants. Washington is playing 5 straight road games. Division games. Who made this schedule? They get bored somewhere along the way? Did they just run out of options? Washington plays Dallas, Philadelphia, Giants. That's how they close the year out. Mike Greeny said this today on Greeny.
When we get to Thanksgiving is when the NFC East race begins. The Cowboys, 3 of their last 4 are in the division. The Eagles, their last 4 are in the division. Washington, their last 5 games are in the division. It is incredible. They're just playing each other in December and into January.
That is unbelievable. But he's absolutely right. By the time we get to November, we're not going to know anything about the NFC East. It's just going to be what it's been, a jumbled mess. And then, boom, Thanksgiving Day is going to get here, and we're going to start to see Washington, Dallas, Washington, Philly, Washington, Giants. It's just going to be a month of NFC East games. Literally a month of them. 5 in a row for Washington. Who put this schedule together? 609-403-0973. Back to the question at hand. Is the Eagles roster better than everyone thinks? Well, I'll tell you a couple of areas where it is. 1, right tackle, they are better. 2, right guard, they are better. 3, left guard, they are better. 4, left tackle, they'll be better. 5, number 1 wide receiver, they'll be better. 6. Number 2 wide receiver, they'll be better. 7. The quarterback position, they should be better. I'm not saying Hurts is better than Wentz. I'm saying Wentz was that lousy last year. Wentz might be better in Indianapolis, although, by the way, did you see Indianapolis scheduled to start the year? Holy mackerel. How about this? Seattle, the Rams, the Titans, the Dolphins, and the Ravens. 5 straight double-digit win teams. Bang. How are you doing, Carson Wentz? Welcome to Indianapolis. So again, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Hurts is better than Wentz. I'm just saying Hurts has to play better than what Wentz did last year. For whatever reason Wentz didn't play well last year, that's inconsequential to this conversation. I'm just saying whoever's the guy this year has to be better than the guy that they had last year. And it's not fair. It's not close. Wentz was the worst quarterback in the NFL last year. I'm not saying he's the worst quarterback. I'm saying he's the worst. He was the worst quarterback last year. Here's what Sal Powell said.
The quarterback doesn't turn it over at a record rate. And Carson Wentz was in many cases the 32nd ranked quarterback last year. If Jalen Hurts is the 20th or the 18th ranked quarterback and doesn't get sacked as much or get turned the ball over, the team will dramatically improve very quickly.
Not even a question. He's 100% right. So is their roster better? They're better at right tackle, right guard, left tackle, 1 wide receiver, 2 wide receiver, quarterback. Essentially, their whole offense is better. On the defensive side of the ball, you can make an argument that Eric Wilson will be better than whoever else played linebacker last year. You can make an argument that Anthony Harris is going to be better than Jalen Mills. The one area where they are weak, equal to, or worse from last year is the cornerback spot opposite of Darius Slay. Every other spot on the field, they're either equal or better. And it's not even really close. I mean, at right tackle, you're losing Jack Driscoll for an All-Pro. At right guard, you're losing Nate Herbig for an All-Pro. At left tackle, you had a turnstile last year. Even if you get halfway, and by the way, Jordan Mailata was the top 10 rated left tackle in football last year over the final 8 weeks of the season. Give him a full year and a full training camp. I feel pretty good about him. You talk about a bad roster last year. Yep, you won 4 games. But think about these games. Cincinnati, you tie. Pittsburgh, lose by a score. Baltimore, lost by a score. Giants, Cleveland, both those games, lost by a score. Seattle, lost by a score. Arizona, lost by a score. The Washington game at the end of the year, you lost by a score. Let's be honest. Had they tried to play that game, the only games last year that this 4-win roster just got absolutely upended in, the game against Dallas on the 27th, they got bombed. The Green Bay game, they were really not competitive in. And other than that, you go back to the Ram game. That Ram game early in the year, they got beat up in pretty good. Everything else was a score. And the quarterback was so bad that if he just was half competent, who knows what happens in half those games? I'm not saying they win 10, 11 games, but God's sakes, they probably win 8. 609-403-0973. Tommy in Summers Point. What's up, Tom?
Michael, listen, as bad as Carson Wentz was last year, he was still that good to keep us in all those games. And I don't see that with Jalen Hurts. Now, offensive line on paper, absolutely better than last year. But, Mike, what in Jalen Hurts have you seen that he's going to, do you understand what I'm saying? As bad as Carson Wentz was, he still kept us in those games. Had a couple turnovers here and there. But he still was good enough to,
couple? He was the 32nd rated quarterback. Look, I like Wentz. He was horrible last year.
No, I'm talking about, Mike, I'm talking about turnovers in the game. He'd have a couple turnovers per game, but he still was good enough to keep us in those games. We didn't win them because he played that bad. However, what did you see in Jalen Hurts to think he's going to be half as good as Carson Wentz? in the last two games against the Cowboys in the second half, he had 2 turnovers. Like, I think you have a wide receiver that's a rookie. You have a second-year wide receiver that I still think are unproven. I think the number 1 pick's a little undersized. I don't see this team. Why do you think Vegas has them at 6.5, Mike? I think that's a sucker number. And what I'm looking forward to this season, I'm going to Vegas for the first time. Use as a birthday gift, Mike, a 60th birthday gift, and I'm going to go on a golf trip and happen to take on an Eagles game. That's what I'm excited about. I can't get excited. Mike, I've had tickets since '89. I mean, I'm
not telling you to make Super Bowl plans or anything. I'm just saying, I feel like people feel that this team is just a wasted season.
Mike, no season's ever a waste. However, I mean,
like, let me ask you this, Tom. The year that they fired Andy Reid, they had 4 wins. The next year when they brought Chip Kelly in, they went from 4 wins to 10. People thought that team was going to be a disaster.
Here's how I look at it, because I've had tickets so long. Unless you win a Super Bowl, you're a loser. I'm sorry, you're not unless you win a Super Bowl. And we know how hard it is to win it. But I go in every year. Look, if we're not going to win a Super Bowl, I'm not. I mean, I use it as entertainment, but I'm not going to live my life by it anymore because, look, I mean, listen, we won our Super Bowl. Thank God we won our Super Bowl, because had we had, Mike, I don't think we're going to. If I was saying, but how do you get excited? I don't think Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback.
Well, and look, and I got to run, Tommy. Look, I'm not saying that he's a franchise quarterback, but what I've seen from Jalen Hurts that I'm excited about and that I think is intriguing is 2 things. One, he is a tremendous leader. He is an absolute. The locker room gravitates to this guy, so he has the ear of everybody in there, and that's a big deal. 2. He is a playmaker, not just with his legs, but he is a guy who has very good rapport with Devonta Smith. He's a guy they've played together in college. I think the other thing is Nick Sirianni, from his track record, working with San Diego, working with Indianapolis. I like the fact, look, I'm not a Peterson hater. I didn't love Peterson, and quite frankly, I didn't think he deserved to be fired. However, I think you can make a strong argument that the younger players did not develop all that well. And I think Sirianni, one of the things that excites me about this team is that Nick Sirianni is a guy who has backgrounds working with wide receivers. He's been a wide receivers coach in this league. And an area that the Eagles have not developed very well is the wide receiver position. So I think Sirianni getting his hands on Jalen Reagor, Devonta Smith, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Travis Fulgham, makes that position a stronger position than the position has been under Doug Peterson's tutelage. What I like about Doug, I thought Doug had the locker room. I think the locker room loved playing for Doug. So I value those things about Doug. I don't know that he was the best day of coach. I didn't love his offense. Now, I also didn't say his offense, vanilla offense, is why they lost games, because I still think, as vanilla as the offense was, that if Carson Wentz just played better last year, they don't win 4 games. But good conversation. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Sports Bash Live on a Thursday edition. I'm doing the best I can today, by the way, with these allergies that have been crippling me. Anybody else continuing to have these problems, man? I did not sleep a lick last night. So maybe that's why I think the Eagles roster is better. No, it's just a better roster. It is. It's not hard to see. The Eagles don't even have to get on a plane after week 10. Yeah, they do not travel after week 10. Everything else is on the East Coast. Everything is in New York. They play the Giants, they play the Jets, and they play Washington. Everything is on a bus or a train. So that is another big key. When Washington and Dallas are traveling all over. I haven't looked at the Giants as in depth yet. I'll do that coming up next on the Sports Bash. 2:45 on a Thursday. Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. You can set your alerts up for whatever sport you want, whatever team you want. Phillies, Flyers, Eagles, Sixers, high school sports, or get them all. Just go to 973ESPN.com/app. Send me a message on the video stream, or if you're listening on the radio, 609-403-0973. Send me a text. Give me something that you're excited about for this season. Chris is watching on YouTube. Says the one thing I'm excited about is the leadership, especially from Hurts. Not sure how good we will be, but the energy is definitely different. Yeah, I think the Hurts leader, all of that is real. Everybody you ask, we had Lane Johnson on the show about a month ago. Give me something about Jalen Hurts. Oh, he's the leader. He's definitively the leader. He's like that guy that literally, I said this about Russell Wilson, that Russell Wilson's a great quarterback. He can make the throws. He can throw the deep ball, but he's a better leader than he is a quarterback. That's Jalen Hurts. That's not to take away from his skill set. That's not to say, well, he's just Tim Tebow was just a leader with terrible skill set. And he won games in the league simply because he willed his team to win games in the league. I mean, I give the coaching staff credit. They built an offense specifically for Tim Tebow because they wanted Tim Tebow on the field and in that huddle and to be a part of the game day preparations because his leadership was that big. Jalen Hurts is a much more skilled passer than Tim Tebow is, but he's a comparable leader. I'm not going to say anyone's a better leader than Tim Tebow is. That guy's epic in terms of leadership qualities. But Jalen Hurts, I think, definitely has the ear of that locker room. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think Jalen Hurts has every single guy in there intrigued by the way he's going to grab this offense and grab this team and make it his. I don't know that he's going to be great, but I'm definitely intrigued. What are you intrigued about? 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. A couple more text messages and a couple things coming in on the video stream. Yeah, whoever made the schedule must hate the Cowboys. You know, the Cowboys have the second easiest schedule in football, but this is where how they place those games actually, playing on the road in the NFL is not fun. And for Dallas, they have to play on the road for a month. They will be at home on Thanksgiving Day. They will not be at home again until after Christmas. That's a month. They're the only team in the NFC East with 3 straight road games. That's a difficult ask. Play 3 straight road games. See where those road games are. I'll get that in a second. Here's the Washington slate. The New York slate. Let me do New York. Home to Denver, at Washington. Falcons, it's 3 winnable games. At the Saints, tough place to play. At Dallas, not the toughest place to play. The Rams, the Panthers. Rams are tough. That's going to be a good team. Panthers, Giants schedule a little light early. At the Chiefs, tough day at the office. Raiders, At the Buccaneers. See, the Eagles have the Chiefs and the Bucs at home. The Giants have to go on the road. So they got Rams, Chiefs, Bucs in a 3 out of 4 week window. That's a tough ask. Philadelphia, at the Dolphins, at the Chargers. That's a tough road trip right there. You're at Tampa, home against the Eagles, at Miami, and at the Chargers. 3 out of 4 weeks you're on the road. And they are not easy road trips. Going across the country to Chargers, down to Florida twice. Not that Jersey to Florida is all that tough, but playing Miami down in the heat in December when you're not really used to it, that's one of the problems, one of the home field advantages. Playing in Miami is tough. I mean, hey, there's a reason why New England trips up against the Dolphins every once in a while. And then to close out the year, when it seems that everybody's playing NFC East games, the Giants are navigating against Dallas, Philadelphia, the Bears, and Washington. So they've got a little bit of a, the runway at the end for them is a little less bumpy. But I think they got a brutal stretch there where they've got at Dallas, the Rams, at the Chiefs, the Raiders, and at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at Miami Dolphins, and at the Chargers. Now, we know playing at the Chargers is not that big of an environment situation, but you got to go across the country. Never easy. And I think that Charger team is going to be big time improved. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Paulie C is listening in Pleasantville. He hits us up on the text board and says 4-11 last year because Wentz was caught up in his emotions, unlike Aaron Rodgers, who validated his importance to the team. Wentz was scorned and didn't care. He always wanted out the moment Hurts was selected. So you're suggesting Wentz's play was affected by having Jalen Hurts selected last year, where Rodgers, who obviously didn't like Jordan Love being the pick, didn't let it bother him on the field. I just thought Wentz just flat out had a disaster-filled season. And it's like the snowball. It just started going, and they could not push it back up the side of the mountain. Matthew from EHT, big Washington fan. Can't wait to see that D-line with Chase Young in year 2. Yeah, that defense is going to be something special. Washington's defense not going to be fun to play against. See that Washington schedule real quick. Let me see what their slate looks like. Chargers, Giants, at Bills, not fun. At Falcons, Saints, Chiefs, at Packers. Don't know what the Packers are, but playing Saints, Chiefs, Packers. At Denver, never easy. Tampa Bay, not fun. That stretch there, woo. Saints, Chiefs, at Packers, at Denver, Tampa Bay. That's a stretch for you. Holy mackerel. Now, the Saints aren't going to be nearly as good. I mean, look, 2 years ago, Breeze missed 5 games. They won all 5. Last year, Breeze missed how many games? And they won every single one except for the one against the Eagles, I think. So, still a good football team with or without Drew Brees. You're playing the Chiefs at Packers. If they have Aaron Rodgers, that's a tough day at the office. And playing at Denver is tough. It's not a good football team, though. Although they're a good team, they just have bad quarterback play. Teddy Bridgewater should help that. At the Panthers, Seahawks, at the Raiders, and then 5 straight division games. Cowboys, Eagles, Giants. It's kind of an interesting literally Cowboys, Eagles, Giants. Put that together. All right, let's take a look at the Cowboys schedule. See what we got here. At Tampa, at the Chargers, tough. Eagles, prime time. Panthers, Giants, at the Patriots, at Minnesota, Denver, Atlanta, at the Chiefs, Raiders, at the Saints, at Washington, at the Giants. There's a stretch, 3 in a row. On the road, 4 out of 5, by the way. They play at Kansas City, and then the short week they play on Thanksgiving, and then 3 straight road games. That's the story of their schedule right there. Everybody's going to be hanging around within striking distance until that right there. That's the spot. 11/21 is the week when the NFC East will get interesting. 11/21, November 21st. That is the week the NFC East will get interesting. Greeny said this morning.
When we get to Thanksgiving is when the NFC East race begins. The Cowboys, 3 of their last 4 are in the division. The Eagles, their last 4 are in the division. Washington, their last 5 games are in the division. It is incredible. They're just playing each other in December and into January.
Right. So you can make a good argument that everything that happens up until that point, and he's saying Thanksgiving. I'm going to go the week before because Dallas plays at the Chiefs, and then they have the short week. They're not winning. And by the way, New York and Dallas both have to play at Tampa and at Kansas City. I don't like to say it's a win or a loss, but it's pretty hard to believe that with that Dallas defense that they're going to win at Tampa and at Kansas City. Maybe they get one of them. I don't know that they're getting both. I don't think they're going to be winning at New Orleans or at New England. I know New England is a much different team this year than the one from last year. What stood out about the schedule to Jason Fitz? He'll join me on the other side, the host of Spain and Fitz. What excites me about the Eagles over on the text board? Mike, I like that our young offensive line talent seem to like one another. This group reminds me of, not offensive line, offensive talent. This group reminds me of Shady, Macklin, Vick, and Jackson. It's a pretty good offense there. Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Jalen Hurts. Sports Bash Live, 97.3, ESPN, the free mobile app. Don't forget, watch the show live over at 97.3, ESPN.com, through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. I'm back with Jason Fitz coming up next. Live on a Thursday, it's the Sports Bash. Keith Smith talks NBA in 20 minutes. Last night you heard it right here on 97.3 ESPN. The Hawks knock off the Wizards, which means the NBA Eastern Conference playoff bubble could solidify itself by possibly the weekend. We'll have that coming up with Keith in 20 minutes. By the way, the Kansas City Chiefs opened the season. Not the Kansas City Chiefs, excuse me. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I should say. The Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers opened the season against the Dallas Cowboys on Thursday night. That's how we start the season. Of course, you'll be able to hear that game on 97.3 ESPN. So you're looking for a home game against the Chiefs. Was that the best option to start the season? How about Chiefs-Buffalo? Come on, man. Would you rather see Dallas, Tampa, or Buffalo, Tampa? I know Buffalo and Tampa doesn't sound all that good, but Buffalo is a legit Super Bowl contender, at least opening the season. And if you're looking for a home game for Tampa to be at home, Dallas, I don't have a problem with that. You know, you're getting Dak Prescott, you're getting Dallas, you're going to get to see, what they look like coming back. But I thought that the more interesting game could have been them against Buffalo. The week one games were, as we talked about yesterday, there was a lot of juicy ones on that list. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Mike, everyone always talks about the Eagles' passing game. Hurts, Devontae Smith, the O-line. I'm excited to see how this new coach is able to get things going in the run game. That's an interesting point. I'm glad you brought this up. The text message goes on to say, in Indy, he had three good backs in Mack, Taylor, and Hennis. Who would be the other guy? Hines. That's who he's saying. Nyheim Hines is who you're talking about. And they were all able to carve and roll in that offense. If he's going to use Miles Sanders as the primary three-down back, or are we going to use another three-guy system? I'm glad you brought this up, text message, because I think you're right. I think Nick Sirianni wants to lean on the run game. I think Nick Sirianni wants to lean on Miles Sanders. And that's why they brought back Jordan Howard. And that's why they brought in Kerryon Johnson. And that's why they put fifth-round capital into Kenneth Gainwell. They say, look, we've got this offensive line coming back. Let's utilize these guys the best way we can. Let's run behind them. That text message, I'm really glad you brought up. I think you're going to see a more true West Coast offense with a lot of play action. You've got big play type of receivers with speed. Devonta Smith, I think that most people out there who maybe aren't college football fans and didn't see an Alabama game in the last couple of seasons are about to be treated to an absolute stud. But I also think Jalen Reagor is a guy that we shouldn't close the door on in terms of Nick Sirianni getting more out of him and utilizing him in better ways than Doug Peterson did. That's one of the problems I had with Doug Peterson. I don't think he utilized his talent as good as he could have. Dominic is watching on Facebook, says, not too excited about this season, Gill. This is a 5-11-1 roster. There's another tie in there. Who do they tie this year? Hurts is the real deal. He'll surprise a lot of people. That's interesting. So you're saying that Hurts is the real deal and will surprise people, and yet the team will not be any better than it was last year. That almost doesn't make any sense, because if Hurts was the real deal and played last year, they probably would have been 500 at minimum. We forget. I went through the schedule last year. How many games did they lose by one score last year? Just one score. I would say more than half their schedule, they lost by one score. More than half the games were one-score losses. If you go back and look, they had a tie. They lost the game to Baltimore by 2 points, one score. They lost the game to Cleveland by 5. They lost the game to Seattle, 23-17. They lost the game to Arizona, 33-26. They lost the game to Washington, 20-14. I mean, that's 6 losses right there that were all one-score games. They lost the game to Baltimore by 2. I know that game was a little wonky. They came all the way back in. But if you're telling me, Dom, that Hurts is the real deal, they're not winning 5 games, if that's the case. If Hurts can play, they ain't winning 5 games. If Hurts is half decent, I'm not saying he's a Pro Bowler. I'm not saying he's in the MVP conversation. I'm not saying he's an all-pro. I'm just saying he's half decent. He's league average. He's, at the end of the day, we look at the, we go through the NFL stats and we go to the quarterback offensive leaders, right? He's not Deshaun Watson. He's not Russell Westbrook, but maybe he's Kyler Murray. Maybe he's Baker Mayfield. Maybe he's in that range, If that's the case, and Kyler Murray was 13, Baker Mayfield was 18, if he's somewhere in there, this team's winning more than 5 games. I can tell you that much right now. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Another thing, and this is up in the over in the chat here. The Jalen says, I never really saw the same Wentz after some of the injuries. Important to remember that for Dak as well. Hope he's back to normal, even though I hate Dallas, but it's far from a given. That's an interesting point, too. Carson Wentz was the MVP of the league, likely, in 2017. And we have not seen that guy since. We saw flashes of that guy, but we didn't consistently see that guy. And because we didn't consistently see that guy, it's one of the problems that this team had. That was one of the problems, is that they just constantly couldn't get consistent quarterback play. And that's going back to 18, 19, and 20. Now, Dak Prescott, I think about mid-March, said that he felt healthy and he was ready for the start of the season. So we'll see if the same Dak Prescott is ready to go. If he's the same player, that we saw the first half of the year or the first part of his career. I mean, in 5 games last year, he was tremendous. Almost 2,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He completed almost 70% of his passes. If you get that guy back, yeah, you're great. But keep in mind, he had a gruesome injury. I'm not suggesting that he's not going to be a good player, but let's remember, Carson Wentz was going to be the MVP of the league. He tore his ACL and hasn't been close to the same guy. Dak Prescott had to undergo, from my knowledge, from what I remember, is that he had to get a second surgery on that ankle because the first one did not do enough cleanup. It did not strengthen the ankle enough. That was a very gruesome injury. And again, I like Dak Prescott. I'm not like, oh, he's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, so I can't like him. No, I like watching him play. I think he's a great dude. I think he's a great leader. But that injury is a tough one, man. He had a compound fracture and dislocation of that ankle. That is a long, long road back. Some people thought his career could have been in jeopardy. I mean, look, Alex Smith had a compound fracture of his leg, right? Wasn't that what Alex Smith ended up with? Not quite as bad. I mean, Prescott having it to the ankle isn't as bad, but it's in a parallel universe. And Alex Smith took a while to get back on the field and clearly wasn't the same player. I think that's another interesting thing. Remember last year when Dak got hurt, his teammates couldn't even look at the injury. I hope he comes back. And I hope he's Dak Prescott that we saw, because that's what you love about sports. But we're just assuming, much like Carson Wentz, hey, when Carson comes back, he'll be the MVP of the league again. Never happened. Never happened. And guess what? Well, Carson was very good in 18 and 19. At times, he wasn't consistently good. Right? 609-403-0973. You can't say, this is on the text board, by the way, you can't say Doug couldn't utilize talent, and then a couple commercial breaks earlier say Doug was a huge reason you won the Super Bowl. Well, sure you can. You can very well say that. I don't think he utilized his talent the best way that he could. The younger talent is what I said. The reason that team won the Super Bowl is a lot of the talent on that team was already established talent. What I said was I didn't think Doug did a good job utilizing the younger talent. Guys like Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, even Miles Sanders his first year. He didn't utilize Miles Sanders until Jordan Howard went down with the injury. But he was a huge reason why they won the Super Bowl, because that team already had established talent on it. That team was filled with guys who were already established in the league. Give me a young player on that team that made a major contribution. I can't really even think of one. I mean, Sidney Jones was Derek Barnett was drafted. Didn't do all that much. It's the younger players that I'm talking about when I say Doug couldn't utilize the younger talent. I don't like the way he utilized Jalen Reagor in the offense. I don't think he did a great job utilizing Miles Sanders in the offense. What he did a good job with was the veteran players. He goes on to say, I think Eagles' issue was Howie not giving Doug talent in the last 3-4 drafts. We're about to find out. This is going to be a big season for Howie Roseman, because now here's some guys that I gave Doug Peterson, and Doug didn't get a lot out of. He said it. We're excited about getting our young talent into this new coaching staff's hands. Shots fired. AKA, we gave Doug talented players. He just didn't do a very good job with them. 609-403-0973. Afternoon, Sammy. What's up, man? I think the Dak Prescott injury is something that's going to be a big factor in this race, because with Dak Prescott healthy and the best version of Dak Prescott there is, I think they're the best roster. That's debatable, actually, because that Washington defense is really good. So where Dallas has a good high-power offense, Washington has a defense that can stop them. I think the Dallas offensive line is overrated, and I think the Washington's defensive line will kick their ass. I think Dallas's offensive line will have a tough day at the office. And by the way, I think the Eagles have a better offensive line than the Cowboys do, and I think the Washington offensive line will give the Eagles offensive line a tough day at the office. That Washington defensive line might be the difference maker in a division that doesn't have a standout quarterback right now, because I can't call Dak that until I see him play. If he's the same Dak Prescott, fine. But Carson Wentz was never the same. Sports Bash Live. On the other side, how the East will be won. Keith Smith. As we get closer to Sunday, the final day of the NBA regular season, we're getting maybe a better sense of what the playoffs might look like. But this Eastern Conference playoff chase is just outstanding theater. This is what the play-in game was supposed to be for. You got players sitting out all over the place, though. So you got this whole balance of bad product, but playing for something. But I'm interested in these last 3 games. Down the stretch they come. Philly plays Miami. They play Orlando twice. They got to win one of those 3 to secure that number 1 seed. Brooklyn is a game and a half back with 3 to go. Philly has the tiebreaker. We'll ask Keith Smith from Yahoo Sports how that will play out. What will the 4-5 matchup be? It looks like we know who 7 through 10 will be. And then we'll look at the West as well, how the West will be won. Philly and Miami tonight. Could be no Joel Embiid here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's bring Keith Smith in. Yahoo Sports covers the NBA at Keith Smith NBA on Twitter. He is back on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Keith, what's up, my man?
Hey, a lot. It's, as you said, we're right down to the end here, and there's still nothing, has been decided as far as seeding wise.
Down the stretch they come. What do we know? Nothing. All right. So what can we find out tonight? What are some of the key things that are happening tonight? Because you got Philly, Miami. That game has a lot of implications. Atlanta is in action tonight, and that game has some implications.
Yeah, well, we've definitely got you were mentioning before, the advent of the play-in has, roughly 22 teams still alive this late in the season, which is absolutely amazing. So you have almost every game means something. Rarely are we getting a game here where it's like, that game, doesn't mean anything. It's 2 terrible teams. Even when the bad teams, they're, maybe what we want. They're trying to lose, but it still means something. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat the Boston Celtics, and all that did was get about 3 more fan bases super excited that Cleveland won a game. So tonight, Philadelphia can wrap it all up. They're going to get the 1 seed because they're not going to lose. Even if they lose tonight, they're not going to lose both games to Orlando. If that happens, then quite frankly, they don't deserve the 1 seed. But they'll get that wrapped up either tonight or tomorrow. We'll see if Jimmy Butler plays for Miami tonight. That's big game for them because they're trying to hold off the Knicks. They're trying to catch the Hawks. So yeah, still a lot to be decided down the stretch.
Right, you just said it. The Miami game, it is important for them because they have moved themselves into the number 5 spot currently, right? And they are tied with the Knicks. They're only a half game behind. So 4, 5, and 6 are all within a half game of each other. Gut feeling, what's the 4-5 matchup?
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being Atlanta and Miami. And the only reason I say that is because Philadelphia has that cushion of those 2 Orlando games. I don't know how hard they'll push to get the win tonight and get it wrapped up, unless their whole idea is we're going to be able to take those 2 games kind of off and be done with this. So I'll give Miami a fairly good shot tonight. And then New York's got a couple tough games. A lot of it's going to come down to how much Boston wants that last game in the regular season on Sunday. If the Celtics have, anything to play for, like they're trying to be the 7th seed and host a play-in tournament or anything like that, then maybe, New York might be in a little bit of trouble. But we'll see. At this point, I'm just kind of going to lean towards the teams I think that are a little bit better. So I'll go with Atlanta and Miami, with New York dropping into the 6.
All right, and if Chicago loses tonight, Washington would clinch a play-in berth as well. So then the play-in teams would be Boston, Charlotte, Indy, Washington in some order. That hasn't been determined yet either. But of those 4, which of the 4 is the best, is clearly the best of those 4?
I think it's still Boston, but it's starting to be a major question how much they really care down the stretch here. I think it's been a long season, coming off of a long season with a short off season, and they have underperformed. And now Jaylen Brown's out for the year. I think they are starting to look at it and saying, all right, we can push this thing. We can get into the postseason, but they're not going to beat Philadelphia if they're the 8 seed. They're not going to beat Brooklyn if they're the 2 seed, or if they're the 7th seed and Brooklyn's the 2 seed. So it's starting to look like, Charlotte is pretty hungry. For them, getting to the playoffs would be a big deal. For Washington, getting into the playoffs, that's kind of a big deal. So those teams you seem to want it a little bit more. I think Boston's still the best team, and I think they can prove that over the next week or so here while we go through the play-in process. But I'm just not sure how much they really want it.
Right, exactly. Well, Boston, you would know Boston well too, Keith. You follow them on a pretty much day-to-day basis, and they lose Jaylen Brown. What kind of pin did that put to the balloon?
Yeah, that pretty much, kind of, the final nail in the coffin, whatever we want to call it. It really, ended things for them. They were still, thinking through it of, all right, if we can get everybody healthy, we've shown what we can do when we have, most of our guys. So this is now with Brown out for the year, they're never going to have played a game this year where their top 7 players were available at the same time.
Wow.
And that's not even counting Evan Fournier, who just got to the team. This is their top 7 guys they thought they would have going into the season. They've never had that even for one game this year. So that it kind of gives you a sense of where they're at. But they still believe, hey, if we can get there and get our guys healthy, and it looked like they might have finally been, turning that corner a little bit, we can make a run here in the playoffs. And with Jaylen Brown out, it just puts too much pressure on the other guys. They can still be, as Brad Stevens put it, we can still be a nuisance. They could still get into a playoff series, even with Philly or Brooklyn, and maybe win a game or two if Jason Tatum goes crazy and Kemba Walker is big, but they're just not a real threat to do much of anything. And Jaylen Brown being out was kind of the final, blow to that.
Yeah, and this is amazing. I mean, this is a team that was the 3rd youngest team in the Eastern Conference Finals. They had been there multiple times. They sweep out the Sixers last year, and here we are one season later. Philly looked like the arrow was going down. Boston looked like the arrow was going up. How did they flip-flop so quickly?
Well, if you want to take the rest of the night off, I'll take the rest of your show. We'll run through that. There's a lot of reasons for it. I think Danny Ainge stubbornly held on to all of those draft picks. And I've written this, I've said this multiple times. After he nailed the drafting of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, including the trade with Philadelphia, those picks kind of became they were house money to an extent. But then what they did was, instead of moving those picks in trades or anything like that, he kept hanging on. Those picks didn't deliver the way they really hoped. The Kings had one of their best seasons that they've had in years. That ended up the last pick in the lottery. The Grizzlies, much better than anybody expected. Last pick in the lottery. Those players are okay, but what's happened to Boston now is their bench is ridiculously young and inexperienced. And they basically went into this year with very little depth. They had about 5-6 guys that they felt really good about. And then after that, it was, all right, well, we hope this rookie can step forward. We hope this rookie can step forward. Maybe this guy comes back from injury and looks good. And when you're really sitting there with about 6 guys you feel good about, a 7th guy you feel okay about, and then you have any kind of injury problems, which they had throughout the year with Kemba Walker and then Jason Tatum and then Marcus Smart, then Tristan Thompson, then Jaylen Brown. What ended up happening was they were over-reliant on young depth, and that didn't get it done. On the flip side, Philadelphia kind of cashed in on some of their younger pieces, started moving guys out, went in and got some veterans who fit really well, and now they've made that push up the standings. It really is, like you said, it kind of became almost like ships passing in the night.
Keith Smith, the Cliff Notes version of what happened to the Boston Celtics this year in the East. And then, you got that whole little clump in the middle with 3, 4, 5, 6, not 3, 4, Atlanta, 4, 5, and 6. Those are 3 surprise teams for different reasons. Atlanta was a surprise, New York, a real surprise, and Miami surprisingly in this position. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out as well. But let's go to the top, where Philly needs one win. Brooklyn finally seemingly getting healthy here. Everybody seems to still be picking them. And then there's the Bucks. What happened to them in that game against San Antonio?
Yeah, that one was really kind of came out of nowhere. Now, the Spurs were desperate, and there are a lot of times when a team is desperate to win in the NBA, they'll come out and they'll play with, supreme effort, and especially in this season where, teams are playing, 3 games in 4 nights and guys are worn down and those kind of things. We've seen some really odd results. But that one was, really kind of came out of nowhere. And with the Bucks, that really kind of killed any chance that they had of moving up in the standings. That loss was, about it for them. So yeah, I think we're going to see this finish: Philly, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee, and then we'll see, because I've said it to you guys for weeks now. You want that one seed because you only want to have to beat one of those other teams in the East Finals. You did not want to have to go through two of those teams, because you're probably then 2-3, which looks like it'll be Brooklyn, Milwaukee. Most likely that's going to be an extended series. It's going to be a tough series. It's going to take a lot out of guys. And Philadelphia as the one seed, and I'm basically kind of penciling them in there. It's not going to be a cakewalk in the second round, especially if it's Miami in that second round series. But they should be able to get through it easier than Brooklyn or Milwaukee's going to have in theirs. And then that gives them the leg up. Not only that, but also home court advantage, which more and more fans are going to be in these buildings. That's starting to look like it'll really be something. So I think Philly's in really good shape here moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. As Philly announced that they're going to be going to 50% capacity and then a full building by the time they get to the NBA Finals. So if they can get to the NBA Finals, it looks like Philadelphia will have a full building for the finals. Right now, the Philly opponent in round one would be either Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, Washington. Let me ask you about that, Keith Smith. Do these teams have kind of a disadvantage that they have no clue who they're playing until essentially a day or two before they match up?
To an extent, yes. I think that comes into play much more in the Western Conference, where you have the Lakers kind of hanging out there maybe as one of the teams. You'd really like to know, all right, do we need to prepare for LeBron James and Anthony Davis? I think in the East, I don't think Philadelphia or Brooklyn is overly concerned about who the 7-8 teams are. They should beat any of those teams. It is funny because there is, part of it you look at it and say, boy, if it's Philly and Boston, that starts to be just one of those things where, let's just say Boston gets hot from the field and wins game one, all of a sudden you're going to have, mass panic from the Philadelphia side, because it's like, here we go again. We just can't, we can't get past these guys in the postseason. And then, I still, I would pick Philadelphia, and I'd probably pick them in about 5 games to win that series. But that's where I think it's there. But I'll tell you, I think after this, grinding marathon of the season, or not even marathon, sprint of the season to get to these, 72 games in, I think you'd much rather have the 5 or 6 days off and, just kind of focus on yourself in those first few days, get yourself healthy, focus on cleaning up some of your own mistakes, maybe, put in a couple new things people haven't seen yet. And then you'll have plenty of time to prep for whoever it is you're going to play, because you'll have that sense, especially Philadelphia, because they'll know on the first night of the play-in when the 7-8 play, all right, we know who now is going to, well, they won't know which team, but they'll know who it's not going to be. And in some ways, that's just as important as everybody else is.
Yeah, all right, let's go real quick to the West. As we told you on the East, Keith Smith is with us from Yahoo Sports, covers the NBA. Tonight, Atlanta clinches the division title with a win and a loss by Miami. Chicago would be eliminated with a loss. Philadelphia would clinch the best record and the number 1 seed with a win tonight. And Washington clinches a play-in berth with a loss by Chicago. That's on the East. Tonight, Phoenix would clinch the Pacific title with a win and a loss by the Clippers, so that would get them above the Clippers. Portland clinches a playoff spot with a win that keeps them out of the play-in game. San Antonio would clinch a play-in spot with a win tonight or a loss by Sacramento, and Sacramento is eliminated with a loss. So that's on the West of what happens tonight. But we still have L.A. just 1 game behind Dallas and Portland. So does L.A. get out of the play-in and get in? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna, because they need help, and that's the tricky part. Is if it was a situation where they just controlled their own destiny over these last couple games, I'd say, yeah, sure, I think they're going to get there, but I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to be, in that play-in, and that's going to make it tough on them, because that's a couple extra games they need to play. They don't get that downtime. Clearly, they're being very cautious with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and then beyond that, it just makes their path that much harder. They're not going to have home court in any of their series going forward. They're going to have to play, the best teams in the league on the road. And I think that makes it tough on what, has proven to be behind James and Davis, a very limited Lakers team.
Yeah, that should be if you are one of the top two teams in the West, you're thinking, are you kidding me? We might have to play L.A. or Golden State the way Seth Curry is currently going. And I would imagine the NBA is just absolutely foaming at the mouth at the possibility of an L.A. Golden State play-in game.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's very interesting with the Warriors in Grizzlies is they're trying to hold off the Grizzlies from catching them for that 8th spot. And then they are going to play on Sunday. And unless Memphis loses their next 2 games, which is pretty unlikely, we might almost see Warriors-Grizzlies as a pseudo play-in to determine the play-in order and figure it out from there. So it's going to, this play-in tournament, for all the criticisms it has taken, if you're just a fan of the game and you want to see, fun and exciting games, you're going to get it. Because in the East, there's all sorts of interesting teams left there and interesting players left. And then you hit the nail on the head, Mike. If it is Lakers, Warriors, a single game elimination, they'll still have the chance in the next one, but a single game to play into the playoffs, that is must-watch TV that we'll all have to be tuned into, because for me, that throws Stephen Curry right back to the Davidson days of, this guy was the biggest single elimination monster that, the NCAA tournament has seen in years, with the way he could just will his team to a victory. That's definitely a game I know I will not miss.
Definitely. Keith Smith, we will not miss him next week, because by next week, we will know most of them. Now, we will not know who the Sixers' opponent will be, but we'll be knowing who's in the game to play, because that game, I believe, Keith, is Friday night, right?
As far as we know right now, that is what it looks like. We don't have final confirmation exactly how the play-in tournament is gonna play out, but we'll have at least an idea of who the 2 teams it could be, or there is a slight possibility if they stagger it by conference where we could know. I think it's more likely we'll know who the 2 teams are.
All right, there you go. So we'll talk to Keith about that. We'll have the playoff matchups all set, ready to go. And by the way, Tuesday night, you can listen to the play-in game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Keith, we'll talk to you then, pal.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. He, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Great stuff, as always, from national NBA writer Keith Smith from Yahoo Sports. We have him every Thursday here for Inside the Sixers. And by the way, the Sixers tonight, they've got that matchup with the Miami Heat, which you can only hear on 97.3 ESPN. And there's a good possibility for that game tonight. I do not believe that Joel Embiid traveled with the team. Now, unless something has changed, that he met them down there, I do not think you're going to see Joel Embiid in that game tonight. And Matisse Thybulle is also questionable for the game tonight. They could get Shake Milton back, and they're going to get Furkan Korkmaz back. We'll have more notes on the Sixers coming up. Their big one tonight against Miami. A win, and they are the 1 seed. A loss, well, they still have 2 chances left. Sports Bash, brought to you by Matt Blatt Nissan, the all-new Matt Blatt Nissan, now open Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, next to Home Depot, online, mattblattnissan.com. All right, when we come back, the one that got away. I'll explain. Coming up next. All right, coming up in 15 minutes from now, Adam Caplan has football at 4. He'll give us his thoughts on the new Eagles schedule, some of the quirks in it, and Nick Sirianni is speaking, I think today or now or right this minute, or let's see. Actually, no, it's tomorrow Nick Sirianni speaking at 3:15. There you go, Josh. See, I knew Nick Sirianni was speaking. I just thought it was today. It's actually tomorrow. So we'll have updates on that tomorrow during football at 4. When Nick Sirianni speaks at 3:15, we'll have football at 4 on that. By the way, just to throw this out there for you, the Philadelphia Phillies announced that they will be expanding the capacity at Citizens Bank Park. Phillies lose today 5-1, by the way. They put JT Realmuto on the COVID-related injured list. But the Phillies will increase capacity at Citizens Bank Park. They will be effective immediately. The seating capacity will go from 11,000 to 16,000. And then beginning on Saturday, June the 12th, seating capacity will increase to 100% for the remainder of the season. There will be a limited number of seating pods available for fans who prefer to remain in socially distanced environments. Tailgating will now also be permitted in the lots surrounding the ballparks. Face coverings are currently required when attending games per the guidelines, but you will have 100% capacity beginning on Saturday, June the 12th. Now, their next home game, which is on May 21st against the Boston Red Sox, capacity will go from 11,000 fans to 16,000 fans. So there's a little bit of a positive feel in terms of sports. Now, that being said, the CDC plans to drop mask requirements for fully vaccinated people. So fully vaccinated people no longer need to wear masks or physically distance indoors or outdoors. I don't know how they regulate that. You know, somebody who has their shots and somebody who doesn't have their shots, they're standing in line next to each other in the hot dog line. I don't know how you're going to regulate that. That being said, it is excellent to see that the Phillies will have a full house. I don't know if they'll get to a full house, but they'll be able to have a full house. And then the Sixers, as we talked about earlier, they are going up to 10,000 fans. And after the 10,000 fan mark, they will go to what we believe will be a full building, which would coincide with the NBA Finals. So very interesting stuff in that market in terms of, hey, you want to go to a game? We just got told the Eagles will be having a full capacity Lincoln Financial Field this year. Yesterday, we went through the schedule. Today, the schedule is up on our website, 973ESPN.com. And one thing we said, what road games are you interested in going to? Well, everybody says, I want to go to Vegas. Well, guess what? It looks like you're going to be able to go to Vegas. Pretty cool, actually. Like that feeling that you want to do something and you can now do it. For those of you who have listened to the show over the years, you know, I love getting in my car and taking a drive down to Baltimore to the Inner Harbor for a weekend. I haven't been able to do that in a year. I'd love to just go down there, catch a game at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Haven't done that. You know, I missed spring training for 2 years in a row. Would love to be able to get back to, hey, let's go to a ball game tonight. Didn't go to one Sixers game this year. Not one. I haven't missed a Sixers game. I mean, we're going back to when I was in college, likely. It literally hasn't been, I haven't missed a game, a Sixer game. I haven't been to one where I didn't go to one game in probably 20 years. This year will likely, now I might go to a playoff game now that they're expanding the amount of people that are able to go in the building. 609-403-0973. Mike, you can't say Doug didn't utilize talent and then a couple of okay. We mentioned this one before. There was a follow-up here that I wanted to get to. Said you couldn't say that Doug couldn't utilize talent and then a couple commercial breaks earlier say Doug was a huge reason you won the Super Bowl. I think the Eagles' issue is Howie not giving Doug the talent. It goes on to say, that's my whole point. Doug won with talent. Who got him the talent? You just said it. Doug won with talent. Well, who got the talent? Doug won with talent obtained by, I know it's going to be painful for someone to say this, but where did they get the talent? This is a tough answer for many people out there. I know. Who got them that talent? Doug won with talent obtained by Howie Roseman. Right? To which the gentleman texted back and said, this is very true. Howie got a bunch of veteran talent one year and they won a Super Bowl. But like you said, the team had no young talent that year. Then ever since, he hasn't drafted well, can't find with the same talent level that he found in 2017. So now it's Doug's fault for not utilizing the talent Howie got. Well, that's interesting. That's what I said. Didn't draft well? Or does the front office think he didn't develop the young talent well? That's my point. We're about to find out. Which one is it? Did the Eagles not draft well, or did Doug not do a good job developing the young talent? I think you can say we're going to find out. Text message. I'm leaning on the side that Doug is a better coach than Howie is a GM. But I also don't think Howie's the worst GM out there. I'm a Jets fan and have witnessed plenty worse. Yes, you have. McCagan was pretty bad, right? Idzik was pretty terrible. But look, Howie's track record of being in this organization is success. It's hard for people to come to terms with that. But for 20 years, this team has done nothing but win. He's been a constant. They might not have won as much as people want them to. Nobody does. If you have one Super Bowl in a 20-year window, you're right on par with most except for New England and maybe 3 other teams that won multiple Super Bowls. So in that little blurb at the beginning of Football at 4 where Jeffrey Lurie says, I'll put our organization up against everybody. That's why Howie Roseman stays. Because they will put theirs up against everybody. Because for 20 years, they've been right there with everybody. 609-403-0973. Keep your text messages coming. Jeff Bone and Pookie's watching on YouTube. Who was better, Doug and Chip? Well, Doug's a better coach than Chip at the NFL level for sure. Chip had 1 year where he was new, he was different, he was innovative, enough that the league followed a lot of Chip's principles, but just expanded on them. Chip never expanded on what he was doing. He had a very scaled back version of what we see in the league now. So he was ahead of a lot of people. The problem was he was the first, but very basic in what he was doing. Chip didn't have another gear. It was, this is what we're doing, and teams were like, this is different. And then they kind of figured it out, and Chip didn't say, all right, well, you figured it out, so I'm going to do this. This is what I do. If you don't like it, okay, I don't know what to tell you. In college, a lot of times, hey, you have better talent. So you can keep running what he runs, and the talent will win out. If you're Oregon and you're playing Wazoo, Oregon's just got better players than Washington State does most times. Now, I don't want to take away what Chip Kelly did at Oregon because they had some pretty special runs. But for the most part, and by the way, Oregon was not known as some football factory. You got to give Chip a lot of credit. But to answer that question, Doug has a Super Bowl. Chip has 2 firings under his belt. So that question's not even remotely close. Who was better between Doug and Chip? That's not even there's no cage match there. This is one of those matches where the one guy is handcuffed to the post and the other guy's just kicking him over and over again, right? And his partner's got to figure out a way to get him uncuffed, and he can't find the key because Doug Peterson runs circles around Chip Kelly as an NFL head football coach. A lot of people chiming in over on the text board today. We've been pretty busy over there. Appreciate everybody who is watching the show on the video and listening to the show on the radio. Hey, it's Mike Gill here for the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. And I want to tell you about my friends over at Trifecta Therapeutics. You know, I've been telling you about these guys, and I'm hoping that if you're out there and you're the guy that's like, man, my arm hurts, my elbows hurt, my leg hurts, my shoulder hurts, my ankle hurts, I got my hamstrings have been bothering me, that you call the people at Trifecta Therapeutics in Glassboro. If you're tired of that pain, they have the team of the highest trained and skilled doctors in the area. They're called Trifecta Therapeutics, and they can help you get pain-free. They take a very unique approach to physical therapy and rehab, with each of their clients using cutting-edge equipment, treatment plans, and methods to get you feeling better, playing better, and, of course, staying better. That's the best part. You don't need a script. You can start today. Trifecta Therapeutics offers a range of services for active lifestyle clients, including sports physical therapy, ACL injury rehab, and sports performance training. Whether you're a weekend warrior or a finely tuned athlete competing at the highest professional or collegiate league, Trifecta helps the pros and the Joes. Stop settling for less. Get with the best. To schedule your free discovery session today, use code ESPN Radio at trifectatherapeutics.com or call today. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Download the app in the Google Play or Apple Store, wherever you get your apps for your phone, and watch the show live right now at 973ESPN.com through Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We appreciate all of you who are. When we come back, Adam Caplan has football at 4. The latest opinions when the schedule comes out, the Eagles have just 2 primetime games. Why? Why that? What's the toughest part of that schedule? And the final 4 games could determine their playoff fate. We'll tell you why next. All right, here we go. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, which dropped this morning with plenty of nuggets and tidbits on the NFL schedule, which was released yesterday. Adam Caplan at Caplan NFL is here, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and he joins me on the Boardwalk Honda hotline with a little insider's look at the NFL schedule release. Adam, welcome back, man. How are you?
Good to talk to you, Mike. You know, it's funny. I was listening to you. You're just kind of talk about the scheduling. The Eagles might find it lucky that the first game doesn't count in the preseason. They go against one of the deepest receiver corps in the NFL in Pittsburgh. So, look, the first quarter of the season in terms of the passing game is going to be challenging for that secondary, the much maligned secondary that quite frankly doesn't look much better from last season.
Not yet, anyway. More on that in just a bit. Adam, 6 of the last 9 teams to enter the season with the easiest strength of schedule made the playoffs. Are the Eagles one of those 6 or one of the 3?
Yeah, just so you know, I don't look at last season really very much for what I do is this is the way I evaluate schedules. I do it the way NFL teams do it. I look at last year. I look at how the team ended, right? I look at the roster that they have now. Going forward, do they have any coaching changes, scheme changes in offensive defense? Do they have coaching changes? Anything. Then obviously I have the rookies in and free agents. So little is the same from season to season. So I look at what they are now, not what they were last season. I look at what they were last season, but again, so much has changed. It's so little to do with last season. So I think that, quite frankly, I don't buy that the Eagles have this tough schedule. I really don't. I think it's got pockets of challenges. The first 2 out of 3 weeks on the road. But don't forget,
statistically, of the opponent's winning percentage from last year is the worst in the league.
You know what? And again, what does that mean? How good are those teams this year, and how bad are they this year? That's what you got to look at. I think people overrate that stuff. I look at what they are right now. For instance, Falcons on paper, the Falcons are a bad football team last season. Oh, by the way, they just added Kyle Pitts in the first round. They have a new offensive staff and defensive staff, offensive scheme change, defensive scheme change. They're going to be completely different from what you saw last season. Now, the offensive line's still a problem for them. This is a very winnable game for the Eagles in week 1 at Atlanta. Then the Niners come in. They have the worst COVID and injury situation by far in the National Football League. A lot of these players are going to be back. Not all of them, but a lot of them are going to be back. Week 3 at Dallas. Good luck with the Eagles secondary as it is. Now, by then, they'll have new corners. They're gonna get some help for Darius Slay at some point. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be in 2 months. But they're gonna have some more help. As teams always tell me, don't look at our team right now. Look at it in September. Then you could criticize us. So okay, but fact of the matter is they cannot line up right now an outside corner opposite Slay. They just can't. And then Kansas City. So I would worry. As Moshe and I said on our show today, the best they could hope for in the first 4 weeks would be 2-2. And quite frankly, if they're 2-2 after 4 weeks, they're going to feel pretty good.
I would agree with that. 2 primetime games are in the first 6 weeks. They'll play a Monday nighter against Dallas and a Thursday nighter against Tampa Bay. Why only 2 primetime games? This is the Philadelphia Eagles, Adam.
I know. And my prediction was 2 to 3 games. And people are like, how could you possibly say that? Eagles forever. You're usually getting 4 or 5 primetime games a year. Here's what happened: 4-11-1, fired coaching staff, new coaches, uncertainty at quarterback. That adds up to, despite the Eagles being somewhat of a national team, certainly a top 4 media market, that helps you get at least 2. Every team has to get at least 1, so they have 2. I just felt going in, this is not going to be a typical year. Now, in Doug Peterson's first year, as Moshe pointed out, they had 4 in Doug's first year. I think when you really look at the situation right now with the Eagles, they're just not a team that a lot of people have confidence in. If we're being real here, most people think they're going to be a last place team based on the roster that they have now. They've not significantly improved the roster. Now, at certain places, there's upside. At running back, they're super deep. At wide receiver, they're very young and unproven, but they have talent there. Offensive line, if everyone can stay healthy for a change, they're good. Defense looks bad on paper, but we'll have to see. And again, they're going to have a completely new scheme. The only similarity to the previous one is it could be a 43. Everything else is going to be different.
Adam Caplan, last year, Adam, they had that stretch of games in the middle that was brutal. It was like Green Bay, the Saints, they just Seattle was in there. Is there a stretch in this schedule that you're like, man, this is going to be a tough road for them?
Yeah, really starting. Now some of these games aren't too bad, but they've got a stretch of 3 out of 4 weeks being on the road. At Carolina, it's weeks 5 through 8. At Carolina, very winnable game. Home against Tampa, good luck with world champs and Tom Brady coming in. At Vegas, now we know the Eagle fans travel well. This will be this season is the opening of the Raiders Stadium, and then they're at Detroit. Now the good thing is they're all winnable games, and the nice thing after week 10 they don't fly anywhere. Everything else is their away games. They're taking trains or they're going to take buses. So. That's like this break. I don't know how that's the part about it that you love. But what my friend Warren Sharp pointed out, we're going to wind up having Warren on. Warren put on his Twitter account at how, over the years, the Eagles have been this team that they keep facing these teams that have so much rest ever coming out from a bye. So that's I don't know how this has happened, but it's happened. So that's something to keep an eye on. But there are plenty of games where you look at it. I look at, quite frankly, I look at the teams that they're playing. I count 7 games that are severely winnable. Giants twice, Jets, Atlanta, Carolina, Raiders, Detroit. Then Chargers actually 8. And then they're going to have to find ways to steal a couple games if they want to be in the playoff hunt. I'm right now, if we had to turn our picks, and I don't turn them until I'm in 2 polls that I turn them into late August. But right now, the Eagles on paper, Mike, are a 7-win team.
Washington plays 5 straight NFC East games. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, is that right? Do they? I didn't know that. I haven't even dug into. I've looked at 4 or 5 team schedules now. The Eagles, of course, the final 4 games are divisional games,
right? Because I said Philly plays 4. And 6 of their last 7. I mean, they play the Giants, or 5 of their last 6 is they're all in the division. Washington plays 5 straight. It's Dallas, Philly, Giants.
And then how about the at Giants, at Jets, back-to-back playing in MetLife Stadium? This is so. How the heck does that happen?
I said the schedule maker just got bored at the end and said all these guys. But that being said, Adam, it almost feels like you're going to get to about Thanksgiving and have no idea what the NFC East is going to look like because they will not have played each other.
Right. Although, look, going in, if we're being real here, the Eagles, we would all rank them number 4. I have a Twitch channel, and I asked everyone last night. It's the Adam Caplan show, by the way, and I asked everyone last night, and they all picked the Eagles 4th. They were almost all Eagle fans, by the way, last night in there. We know that they're trailing. Maybe in some ways the offense might be a surprise, but yeah, the divisional winner. I've seen all sorts of. Everyone's picking a different division winner. We haven't had the same team repeat since 2004? Is it? So it's. I don't understand that. By the way, how's that happen? We can't get a repeat in the NFC East.
It was like the South was like that for a while, where it was like New Orleans and then Tampa and now the New Orleans just started to kind of take over. I don't want to put you on the spot. Have we heard anything about where Prescott is? I mean, he's cleared, ready to play, right?
Oh yeah. He'll be fine. I expect him to participate, even though it might be in a limited fashion and somewhat in their their mandatory camp in mid-June. I would expect him to do stuff there. I mean, it might be limited.
I mean, people are just assuming he's going to come back and be the MVP.
Well, look, there was a devastating injury. This is a long rehab. Fracture and dislocation of his ankle. That's a 6 to 7 month rehab there. So altogether, yeah, but he's going to be fine for the season. Not an issue.
All right. Let me get your opinions then on the rookie camp. Begins this week. Head coach will speak tomorrow. Nick Sirianni. So we'll get rock, paper, scissors, Nick back out there ready to go. What is there to gain for the players and coaches getting back out there? They didn't have this last year.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And that's why I want us to talk about it. It's the exposure for the coaches with the players in terms of getting on the field, just getting to talk to them, to see them work out a little bit. They're very limited, by the way. They can't do any coaching, really. Very little coaching here. But just getting them on the field, getting some interaction, seeing them out there. And you also they have the playbook, so they could go through a little bit. There's very little they can do, but the big thing is because the Eagles veterans are going to skip in their statement the OTAs until the mandatory one in June. But this stuff is so important for the rookies just to get there, for the coaches to get to know them a little bit. That to me is the way I would read into it. And I've been to these. This is the first time that I'm probably not going to go. I'm not intending to go at this point because I like it when the veterans, or when we get access, when the veterans and rookies are there. I'm going. I always go. I've gone since 2001. That's to me when the ball is rolling here. You start to get a little bit of an idea. You can't judge anything or evaluate anything in the rookie camp. But again, it's important for the coaches to see these guys live.
I would think so, and I know everybody likes to try to read into stuff here, but is there anything that we can read into this mini for the rookies anyway?
Yeah, I would not at all because you can't being at these rookie camps before. What I like to see, this is the kind of stuff I would watch when I go to rookie camps. Okay, so I heard this guy ran a 4.39. Does he look that fast? Sometimes you hear guys look that fast and they're not. What do their bodies look like in terms of weight? By the way, on our Q&A show with Jason Devine, Quentin Michael, you got to hear what Yvonne talks about Derek Barnett's weight last summer. That was an interesting nugget. They have an unbelievable show, by the way. And that's what I'm looking for, body types. Do the guys coming in shape and out of shape? This is the kind of stuff that you could see up close if you're there at NovaCare. But in terms of performance, nothing matters there. Nothing matters in terms of performance. You're just looking for certain things when you go. Yeah,
definitely look for the third-round pick, Williams, see what kind of size he has coming in because he was a guy was interesting. Last thing for Adam Caplan was yesterday, and I think you guys touched on Inside the Birds on this. Steven Nelson is a name that everyone keeps asking me about. My answer, I don't know why he's not signed. He's a starting level
money,
but 14 teams kicking the tires on this guy.
Yeah, look, it's about money with him. This guy's a starting level NFL corner, more of a number 2. He's only 28, by the way. He's a little bit younger than I thought. And he is by far the number 1 outside corner who's on the street. He was actually released by the Steelers. And when he gets the money he's looking for, that's when it'll get done. The Eagles are going to add a corner before training camp. I can't tell you if it's today, tomorrow, in 2 months, but they're going to do something at corner. It's just a matter of when they think they've got a deal that they're willing to accept. We first reported that the Eagles offered TJ Carey a veteran minimum deal. He turned it down. You got double that with the Colts. You got $2 million to re-sign for 1 season. So they're on the lookout for an outside corner, and they're going to get 1 or 2. They actually could get 2. Who knows by the start of training?
Yeah. All right, Adam Caplan, the new Inside the Birds podcast, fresh right now. Go check it out at Inside Birds, and follow Adam on Twitter at Caplan NFL for all his NFL and Eagles insight and information. All right, Adam, we'll talk to you next week, pal.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Well, there he goes. Adam Caplan, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Adam Caplan's Football at 4 is brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. Speaking of that, look, I want to get into you talking about prop swapping here. How about this? I saw this this morning. The Week 1 opening lines. Couple notes. There are 10 home favorites and 6 home dogs in Week 1. Week 1, Detroit at home against San Francisco. It's the biggest underdog. Detroit at home is a 7.5-point underdog. Now, you can get that right now. Go buy that line, 7.5. And then as the season gets closer, if that changes, you could prop swap and be like, hey, I got the game at 7.5. You want to buy my ticket? The highest over-under total, Seattle versus Carson Wentz and the Colts, over-under 52.5. That is the biggest total. Week 1. Week 1, every NFC East team is an underdog, including 2 home dogs. 2 home dogs. One of those home dogs, the Washington football team. The other home dog, the New York Giants, are a home doggy dog against the Denver Broncos. How about that? Point. Every NFC South team is a favorite. They're all at home. Tampa Bay, 6-point favorite over Dallas. The Saints are a 3-point favorite over the Packers. Who else am I forgetting there? Carolina is a 4-point favorite against the Jets. Who's the last team in that division that I'm forgetting about? Oh, the Falcons. They're a 3.5-point favorite against the Eagles. So that's your week 1 look at the lines here on the Sports Bash Live now that the schedule is out. You can go bet those games now, get the odds locked in today, and then sell those odds at PropSwap.com. All right, Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN. A couple of your messages coming in. Dom Corleone is watching the show. Oh, what a guy. Dom Corleone watching the show. Guys, do you think based on the schedule release, Howie has to trade for a quality cornerback? The first 5 games will be brutal for this secondary. You just heard Adam say they're going to get a corner. I think they'll trade for one. Maybe they sign a Steven Nelson type of player. That would be great. Hey, if they get Steven Nelson on this team, their secondary would be, you have Darius Slay and Steven Nelson. You could do a lot worse than that. I mean, Slay's a player. I know he didn't have a great year last year. He's not a schlep rock. But they'll get a corner in here. You're not starting the season with what you got. Period, point blank. Not happening. Over on the video stream, Noah is watching. What's up, Noah? In regard to playing in MetLife 2 weeks in a row, the 49ers did it last season, although they wish they didn't have after all the injuries in the Jet game. Well, guess what? The Eagles have had success at MetLife, so I don't have a big problem. If you're going to play road games, play them at MetLife. I'd rather play 2 games in MetLife this year because you're playing the Giants who stink and the Jets who stink. All right, when we come back, this has been a fun segment. We've been having fun with this the last couple of days. Do you remember? Okay. All right. So for today's Do You Remember, I have one that includes the answer. That's coming up next. All right, it's time for Do You Remember? These are events and happenings and things that happened on this day, May 13th, which, by the way, is also my father's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. May 13th. I don't know how old he is today. 35, 36, he keeps telling me. Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Happy birthday.
Although he felt that he made you mad, I told you last week.
Yeah, you told that story last week. Nah, he did no such thing.
Okay, I'll have to tell him that. It's his birthday today, though. So happy birthday, Dad. My sister's birthday was a couple days ago as well. So we have a couple Mays, a lot of Januaries in my family.
Yeah, you're in January.
I am. My mother's January. Aunts, 3 cousins. We have a 12, 13, and 14 in January. My brother-in-law is January. My cousin's January. We got a lot of Januaries. But May 13th is today. And do you remember? All right, 1986. Twin Towers, Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson combined for 46 points, 29 rebounds, and 11 blocks. Oh, my God. In a 112-102 win over the Lakers at the Forum, the fabulous Forum in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals, Houston went on to win the next 3 games to make the NBA Finals. My question is, would the Twin Towers be productive in today's game?
No.
Would they win a title with Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson?
No, because the problem is that Sampson, the only reason why he got blocked shots is because he just stood in front of people. He wasn't as athletic as...
Yeah, he was like 7'6".
Yeah, he was a 7'6" stiff, honestly, for the most part. So, Hakeem was the one who was a phenomenal athlete. Hakeem could play in today's game. I don't know about Ralph. I think Ralph would be probably like the backup center on like the Jazz.
Well, Hakeem could play today, no question.
I'm just saying Ralph, I don't think he'd work out too well today.
Yeah, Sampson he'd probably get some minutes.
I don't think backup center for the Jazz.
Like Mark Eaton.
Remember a little more athletic than Mark Eaton, yeah.
1993, for the first time in their 26-year history. How about this? The LA Kings advanced to the conference finals. They beat the Vancouver Canucks 5-3 in Game 6 of the Smythe Division Finals at the Forum, the fabulous Forum, for the second one in here. Wayne Gretzky scored a goal and had 2 assists for the Kings. 1993, Wayne Gretzky was playing for the Kings. That's a long time ago.
And Barry Melrose was the head coach. How about that?
Mullet.
They had everything going. I remember that. You ever see that documentary, 30 for 30, how Wayne, when he went to the Kings, how the hockey became like superstars in LA.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, the Lakers were going downhill. So people started going to Kings games, and the Kings became a hot celebrity item.
Todd Ranck joins us in a half hour. I'm going to ask him, does he know a Kings fan? He lives in LA. Does he know a Kings fan?
Does he know a Kings player?
That's another good question. How about this? The NHL playoffs are about to start.
That's
Do
right.
you remember any of the teams in them?
This year's playoffs?
Do you know any of the matchups?
Well, I know the teams who are in it. I can't name all of the matchups off the top of my head.
Pittsburgh Islanders.
Yeah, you have the Penguins, the Islanders. You have the
Caps, Boston.
Bruins, and the Caps.
Yep.
And then
that's the East.
And then in the Central, it's the 2 Florida teams, Florida and Tampa. And then you have, I think it's Dallas and Carolina. It's really confusing.
Carolina and Nashville.
Oh, it's Nashville. Okay.
Yeah.
In the North Division, the Canadian Division, it's Toronto, it's Edmonton, it's Vancouver.
Well, Edmonton's
Winnipeg.
playing Winnipeg. And
Vancouver's the 4th one.
Toronto is playing Montreal.
Oh, Montreal.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got 3 out of 4 in there.
And then
the West would be Vegas, Vegas, Colorado. I know LA's not in it. I think there's one spot actually still open in the West.
Those playoff matchups aren't set yet.
Yeah, there's one game today between, I think it's Dallas and Colorado, that decides the final slot.
But Wayne Gretzky made hockey cool in LA, 1993. In 1999, Allen Iverson recorded an NBA playoff record 10 steals in a 97-85 win over the Orlando Magic.
Will we ever see a guy get 10 steals in a game ever again?
It's pretty crazy, but I remember that game, Allen Iverson And it was, I believe, in 1999. I want to say that game was on a Sunday for some reason. It could be. It might have been a Saturday. I thought it was a weekend. But when they finally, in 1999, they had finally made the playoffs. And had finally, after all those years, they got Allen Iverson with the number 1 overall pick. And took them a little while. And then they got knocked out by the Pacers a couple times.
Right.
Reggie Miller.
Yeah, they took him a while to find some running partners for Allen. They ran a couple of experiments. They passed on Paul Pierce to get Larry Hughes. That was a great idea.
All right, 1996. Do you remember Magic Johnson, who returned to the NBA after a 4-year retirement from the AIDS virus?
Yep.
He played 32 regular season and 4 playoff games, and then he announced his final retirement from the NBA. I vividly remember Magic Johnson coming back and playing those 32 games. Yeah. I was at the Nyabingi Dance Hall in Morgantown, West Virginia, watching his first game back.
First of all, that's a great name for a dance hall right there.
That's right.
Second of all, it wasn't a popular thing either. There were players on the Lakers team who were very unhappy. Malone. On the Lakers team who were not happy he came back. He was cutting into some of their minutes. Guys like Nick Van Exel, they were like, I don't want this guy taking my minutes away from me. I should be the point guard.
Yeah.
Didn't go over very well.
Did not go over that. And then he ended up being the coach for a little bit after that.
Which was also a disaster.
Yeah, not good. On this day, do you remember 2010, the original Yankee Stadium was demolished, dubbed the Cathedral of Baseball. It served as the home of the Yankees, the New York Football Giants, and numerous championship fights. Were you ever at the original Yankee Stadium?
I was, but not for a Yankees game.
What were you there for?
I was actually there for a college bowl game.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was only at old Yankee Stadium. No. Actually, no. I was not at Yankee Stadium, the original, for a bowl game. I was at the new Yankee Stadium for a bowl game.
See, I was at the old Yankee Stadium for a bowl game.
What bowl game?
It was...
Because I went to the Pinstripe Bowl.
It was Syracuse versus somebody.
Yeah, I went Syracuse versus West Virginia.
Yeah, this was Syracuse versus somebody.
Now, they played it at the old Yankee Stadium?
Yeah, it was a little weird.
I don't remember them playing bowl games there. Like this Pinstripe Bowl they made because of the new Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, they wanted to get some more money out of it.
I was at a game at the old Yankee
bowl
Stadium.
Games are all money grabs.
Yeah, but I just don't remember them ever having one at old Yankee Stadium. That's all. I know they have them at the Pinstripe Bowls at new Yankee Stadium, but I didn't recall them ever having them at the old Yankee Stadium. But I did see one game at old Yankee Stadium, and I've seen one baseball game at new Yankee Stadium, and I saw a bowl game.
So how do you feel about old versus new then?
I'm always a fan of the older, but that place was really breaking down towards the end. The new one, though, I will say, it was like going to a shopping mall. It was just so glitzy and it
was too much.
It's think about all these new baseball stadiums that are being built to look like these older ones. You got this big mausoleum monstrosity. There's no character to the new Yankee Stadium.
Gotcha.
It's just like, hey, let's just make it look like the old one, but just bigger. They didn't really put any character into it. I think a lot of the Yankee fans don't love the new Yankee Stadium either. I think it's just a nicer version of what we already had. They didn't put a lot of thought into it,
Not surprising.
All right, what else we got here? Happy birthday today. Dennis Rodman was born in Trenton, New Jersey.
The Worm.
He was a power forward, won 5 NBA titles with the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls. He had 11,954 rebounds during his colorful 14 Hall of Fame seasons.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm Rodman, he snagged 11,954. I would have got to 12,000 and just took my sneakers off and walked off the floor. That's the way he should have gone out. With 12,000 rebounds exactly and just said, that's it for me.
Listen, he could have done it at the end of his career, would have gone a little differently because he completely bungled the end of his career. After he left the Bulls, things went pretty sideways in his life there because he started doing all. First of all, there was a point where he was playing in an independent league to get in shape, to get back into the NBA. And apparently that was a very interesting situation, to say the least.
Yeah, he's like, was like 50 years old trying to do this.
Yeah. He was a phenomenal rebounder and defender, but
Now,
he was a character.
Would you say, I know the NBA, basketball, everybody gets in, but would you classify Rodman as a Hall of Famer?
I mean, I would, because he was one of the best at his position for what he was doing. He was kind of like it's almost like a closer in baseball. You know what I mean? It's like he was such an amazing specialist. Like, you can't overlook the elite ability he was putting out there. That's how I look at it.
Well, it's funny because, again, we hear in this market complain about Ben Simmons and his inability to score. Here's Dennis Rodman, who had much less offensive talent than Ben Simmons does and had much less talent in general. And yet he was a Hall of Fame player. And I've compared that Ben Simmons is a more skilled version of what Dennis Rodman was. A very, he was a Hall of Famer based on one skill set. Ben Simmons could be a Hall of Famer based on multiple skill sets. It's just not the skill set you want it to be.
Right.
Dennis Rodman didn't have the skill set that you want it to be, which
Right.
was scoring. The most points Rodman ever scored in a year was 11. Not in a single game. I mean, average.
I believe it.
He averaged 11.6 his second year in the league in Detroit.
Honestly, it's a little higher than I thought it would be.
Me too. He averaged 11.6, 9, and 9.8. They are his highs. He averaged double digits one time in his career, and he's in the Hall of Fame. You know why? 18.7, 18.3, 17.3, 16.8, 14.9, 16, 15. His last year in the league in Dallas, he averaged 14 rebounds.
Incredible. Absolutely insane.
Right? Is Dennis Rodman playing in today's game?
Oh, yeah. He'd find a way in this game, because you know what? First of all, I think that his game would have been a little differently offensively, because they basically told him when he got to Detroit, don't worry about your offensive game. In today's game, he would have grown up a little differently. He would have had more of an offensive repertoire. He would have been a version of Ron Artest. Jeffrey
Johnson's watching. Says, I went to the new one years ago, thought it was a shameful mausoleum of a baseball stadium. Thanks, Mike.
Mausoleum's a strong word there.
It is. It's just like this big concrete mausoleum that they essentially said, we want to try to make it look like a glitzier, glamorous version of its predecessor. That's all they tried to do.
Right.
They didn't try to do anything different. They tried to say, let's make it look almost aesthetically the same with just newer concrete. And the inside concourses, it's like a shopping mall in there. They got like a sushi. They had like a butcher. I mean, it was like...
It's Yankee Stadium with more luxury.
Exactly. It's exactly what it was. It was like like the old stadium on steroids. Just like, here's a souped up version of the old one. I don't really remember going to the old one though. I know I went to a game there once, but I don't remember. I think my father took me when I was really young. I think I could have sworn I saw Hideki. Who was the pitcher, the Japanese pitcher that they had? This had to be back in the 90s.
Hideki Arabu?
Arabu. I think he pitched against the Royals the game
97.
I went. Yeah, I think it was Hideki Arabu pitching, and they played the Royals, I want to say.
It's like 97 or 98.
All right, that's Do You Remember for May 13th. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township. I'm Mike Gill. Todd Ranck joins me at 5 o'clock today. All right, I mentioned this a little earlier. We haven't got to it yet, but when we come back, the one that got away, I'll explain. Coming up next. Hey, have you tried the Prop Swap app yet? Download the Prop Swap app or go to PropSwap.com and buy and sell your sports bets. Get the best odds in the country from Prop Swap. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. The one that got away. Has anybody out there checked Nick Pavetta's season? I'm not kidding. Nick Pavetta. Has anybody out there said, you know what, let me see what Nick Pavetta's doing with the Boston Red Sox? You remember Nick Pavetta was traded from the Phillies in the deal last year that got Workman. Freaking Workman. Is Workman in the league this year? What's he doing? So Nick Pavetta with Boston this year. He was in the trade last year for Brandon Workman and Ellerby, I guess. Who was the other guy that came over in that deal? But Nick Pavetta so far this year. So those of you who are wondering and are saying, man, whatever happened to that Nick Pavetta? Since the Phillies traded him to the Red Sox last year, he is 7-0. He is 5-0 this year. With Boston, his ERA is 2.89. In Philadelphia, it was 5.50. How do we explain this? This goes back to the conversation that the text message brought up. Did Doug Peterson get the most out of the talent he was given, the young talent? He won a Super Bowl with established talent. But when you have established talent, they get older, and then new guys come in, younger guys, and you have to develop those younger players to replace your older players. Nick Pavetta, you could say, if you're Matt Klentak, hey, I gave you Nick Pavetta, but you did not use Nick Pavetta very well, or you didn't develop him very well. Just like Howie Roseman could say, I gave you Jalen Reagor. You didn't use him the right way. Well, if this was ever a case of holy Nick Pavetta, I don't know what is. The 28-year-old is 5-0 with a 3.19 ERA this year for the Boston Red Sox. 5-0, 3.19 in 7 games. You know what the Phillies are missing in their rotation right now? For God's sakes, it's Nick Pavetta. They had him. He was right there. And they traded him for Workman, for God's sakes. You know what's funny? This seems to happen all the time. Guys on your team, he stinks. You send him someplace else. Why is he good there? You know, the Phillies traded him to Boston last year. He pitched in 2 games and won them both. He had an ERA of 1.80. In Philadelphia, he pitched in 3 games and had an ERA of 15. I mean, how is this possible? During his time in Philadelphia, he won 19 games and lost 30. So the Phillies tried with this guy, but for whatever reason, one year he had a 6.82 ERA. 6.82 ERA. 6.82. Excuse me, 6.02. He had a 5.38 and a 4.77. I mean, and I say, is he the one that got away? I'm kind of half joking, but I'm thinking as I'm watching the Phillies game today. Now, Eflin did not pitch great today. They lost 5-1. The offense was a little, bottled up, if you will, in the getaway day today. But that's been one of the problems for Philadelphia is here's Nick Pavetta, a young pitcher, and they just couldn't develop him. They've had problems finding and developing young players. It's the same thing we're talking about with the Eagles. We keep blaming their draft classes, how we can't draft. Maybe it's that they can't develop the young players, much like the Phillies. Well, they don't have talent. They can't draft. They can't find talent. You had a guy in Nick Pivetta. He's proven that he can win at this level. Why couldn't you get the best out of him? By the way, Rhys Hoskins today 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Proud of you. Hoskins has been a absolute disaster this year at the plate for the most part. He's had some RBI situations. They moved him all over the lineup. He needs to get it together. JT Realmuto was placed on the COVID list. I think this has more to do with the knee situation than it does COVID, honestly. He got banged in the knee last night or 2 nights ago, stayed in that game, and then left the game. And then today he was put on the COVID-19 injured list. So kind of a wonky situation here because Realmuto can be activated at any time. I think they just wanted to have a backup catcher for the game today. So Rafael Marchand came up to catch that game. Another guy not in the lineup today was Didi Gregorius, who had to leave last night's game due to elbow stiffness. And remember, Didi had to have Tommy John surgery not too long ago. Nick Maton took over and played shortstop. Maton's an interesting cat, man. He has come up and all he has done is hit. At some point, they're going to figure it out, I think. He just looks like a ball player, though. Another storyline, Odubel Herrera, game-tying home run in the 9th on Wednesday night to help the Phillies win that game. Now, they lose today, so it kind of gets overshadowed. But I already feel like the whole Herrera thing has blown over. And it's not because he's starting to play well. He's 7 for 18 with 2 homers, 2 doubles, and 4 walks in 5 games since his first 11 games where he essentially did nothing. But last night, I don't know if you're watching the postgame, John Kruk suggesting that Herrera should be moved to the 5-hole. And this is why we don't have former players manage and GM teams. Odubel Herrera should not be hitting in the 5-hole. Herrera is right fine where he is. Let him hang out there and produce at the bottom of the lineup. There's no indication that he is anything more than what he is, an inconsistent guy with the bat who has a little bit of extra pop than everybody else in the center field spot. But I will say this. If Didi is out for a little bit of stretch of time, with this elbow injury, then I might consider moving Herrera up the lineup. But I'm not popping anybody down to move Herrera up. And they got some interest right now with this lineup. I mean, we talk about it. Rhys Hoskins has just been disappointing. As predicted, by the way. If Realmuto's out, and I don't have any indication that he would be for any longer than the weekend, I would imagine he could be back tomorrow. It's probably Saturday or Sunday at the latest. But they got to figure out, like McCutcheon's starting to come around a little bit. Bohm, honestly, has been a little bit of a disappointment recently. Look, Bohm hits the ball hard. He's a smart hitter. He hits the ball hard right at guys a lot of times, but 215's not getting it done. Made a terrible play in the field today. They sat him for a couple of days, but I think in the end, Bohm will be okay. Every now and then I've been checking in on my 10 predictions for the Phillies season to just kind of like see how they're doing. The one that I've already connected on was the Odubel Herrera one, right? That one, I thought that he would be the starter in center field by the All-Star break. And he's already the Phillies center fielder. And quite frankly, he might just hold on to that job. They don't have anybody in-house. I mean, if they make a trade. But my 10 predictions for the Phillies season, as we're now halfway through another month of May, 1, Bryce Harper will have his best season with the Phillies. So far, I think that's true. Is this, in fact, the best pace for Bryce Harper? I think it is, actually. I'll have to double check that. But from what I understand, Bryce Harper, let's see. Harper's best season with the Phillies, now last year was kind of tough because it was only a 60 truncated season, was his first year, obviously, 35 homers. He's already got 7 in 100 bats, so he's about on that pace. He's hitting 308, which would be his best average. His on-base percentage is 430, which would be his best in Philly and his second best of all time. So, yeah, so far, that prediction is right. Number 2, Alec Boehm will show he's the real deal. I said I expected 288, 27 homers, 87 RBI. Not quite there. That's obvious. Number 3, Scott Kingery, a bounce back year. That's an X. That one's a fail. The bullpen will be significantly better. I guess you could say significantly better is accurate so far. Their ERA was in the 7s last year. Number 5, the best arm in the bullpen will be Connor Brogdon. I don't think he's proven that yet, but I think you're seeing that he can. Number 6, Hazley and Kingery will get replaced by Odubel Herrera by the All-Star break. That has happened. Number 7 also happened, it looks like, so far. Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, and Zach Eflin will be the top pitching threesome in the National League East. That seems to be happening. I think they are the best 3 right now. Number 8, Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, Vince Velasquez, or Andrew McCutchen will be traded. Hasn't happened yet. I think all 4 of those guys are possibility to be moved. Number 9, Spencer Howard won't win a spot in the rotation, but will be in the rotation by the end of the season. I think you'll definitively see that one happen maybe sooner than later. And number 10, we won't know to the end of the year because I said they will win 87 games, which is right now a pace that I guess they're a little short of for the Phils who lost today, which in that wacky National League East. By the way, all the divisions are a little wacky. We keep kind of like saying the National League East and how it's down, and they're all down. Nobody has a runaway, a pull-away winner right now in a division. There's not some team that's like run away and hide from first place. Todd Ranck on the other side for the Ranck Report. His thoughts on the Eagles' schedule. How many games in a row does he think they're going to lose? Wait till you hear this. By the way, in the East, Boston is 1 game up on Toronto and the Yankees. In the Central, the White Sox are 1 game up. Oakland is 2.5 up on Houston. The Mets are 1.5 games up on Philly. The Cardinals are 2 up on Milwaukee. And San Francisco is 2 up on San Diego. The Dodgers, 20-17, 3 games over 500. Philadelphia, 20-18. So let's not get crazy, everybody. There's still a lot of baseball to go. But yes, this Phillies team appears to be very mediocre. When we come back, Ranck will join me for the Ranck Report Thursday. All right, the final hour of the show, but it's a good one, as always, here on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can watch the show live video at 97.3ESPN.com. Makha says, I went over the Eagles' schedule. This is interesting. Todd Ranck will join me, and we will talk about this. As I know, you looked at that Eagles schedule and texted me some wonky stuff. But look at this from one of our listeners who's watching the show. He says, I went over the Eagles schedule, 1-16 or 2-15 at best. Holy mackerel. He says, we beat the Giants once and maybe the Jets. We lose the first 13 games into the bye when Nick and Howie get fired. He says, and I'm serious. That's blasphemy. So let's take a look at some of the interesting parts of this schedule, Todd Ranck. The Ranck report here. All right, so I got a stat for you. You ready for this?
Yeah, go ahead and give it to me.
Yeah, you ready for this? Yeah, you say.
Yeah.
Statistically speaking, the Eagles have the easiest schedule based off their opponent's win percentage from last year. Their cumulative winning percentage is only .430. Okay, they have the easiest schedule in football. The next play is Dallas at .452.
When you look at that schedule, I mean that listener who gave you the 2-14, I'll tell you this, it made my prediction a lot better. I felt better about mine because I was looking at week 8 going, where am I going to find a win in that first 8 games?
All right, well, let me finish.
All right.
The Eagles statistically enter with the easiest strength of schedule based on winning percentage from the previous season. 6 of the last 9 teams that had the easiest strength of schedule made the playoffs.
That makes you feel confident then. You feel pretty good about that? I mean, as you look at this schedule, Mike,
right?
Again, we're talking about last year's records.
Yep.
Obviously, these teams have made improvements, or most of them, not all of them.
Or have they?
I mean, I'm looking at week 1, week 2, a healthy Garoppolo, a healthy Kittle. Week 1, you've got Kyle Pitts now, the tight end, great new weapon for Matt Ryan. I'm just seeing those ideas, and I'm looking down. Then I start to look, again, Dallas, it's going to be conference game. There's always a chance the Eagles could win that game, but the Dallas you would think is going to be in better shape this year, obviously, with their healthy quarterback back. So, I'm just looking at this schedule, Mike, and I'm going, then you start to see the daunting Kansas City and the Tampa Bays and the, Carolina. Yes, it's Sam Darnold, but we don't know. New city, new face, and you've got McCaffrey back healthy. Again, I'm starting to look at these Vegas. I'm looking at week 8 against the Lions as the Eagles' best opportunity when I look at this game. Now, Dallas, they could get, obviously, but
you say the best. I mean, Atlanta won 4 games last year. Now, all of a sudden, it's funny. Philly won 4 games. They're a disaster. Atlanta won 4 games, and that's the toughest place to play all of a sudden.
Yeah, but
it stinks.
Yeah, but look at Atlanta's games last year, Mike. At the end of the year, I think it was 4 games. Their last 4 games, it was 1 possession or less.
Well, Philly, and it's funny you mentioned that because I went through their schedule last year. They had, I think, 8 of their games were 1-score games. Philadelphia. Right. They had, I think, 8 1-score, 1-possession games so essentially they were in every game last year. It just felt that they were getting crushed every game because the team was not fun. They were painful to watch. They had injuries all over the place. And even with that, most of the games were 1-possession games.
But when you look at those games and you look at what the Eagles need to do this year, what they needed to add, obviously I told you I love Devontae Smith, right? Yeah. I love that pick. But is he enough? Because do you feel like last year was really the offense that was the issue? I mean, the defense is what kept you in the game.
Well, their defense was not great. I mean, their defense certainly is still a problem right now. But I contend Wentz was just so bad. If he was just average last year, they win half those games. He was so bad that they won 4 games. That's how bad he was. He was the 32nd ranked quarterback, and they were like the 32nd ranked team because now, why was he so bad? I think that is a question, Todd. I mean, their offensive line had 13 different line combinations.
Right. So the trust, lack of trust. Right.
This year, somebody asked, is their roster better? they're better at almost every single spot on the field. I mean, Lane Johnson is better than whoever played right tackle last year. Brandon Brooks is better than anyone who played right guard last year. Sayamala missed 8 games last year, him being back. I mean, their offensive line should be drastically better. Devonta Smith is better than anything they had last year. Remember, Deshaun Jackson only played in 1 game, maybe 1 or 2 full games. So Devonta Smith should be better than any weapon they had offensively. So offensively, they just simply should be better. If the quarterback is just middle of the road, they're better.
Well, and I would agree in the sense that I think they're going to be better as you watch the game. Like if you're watching the Eagles, I think they're going to look better this year than they did last year.
Let me tell you, and I was not a Peterson hater. I don't think he was terrible, but the offense was very vanilla. Now, why was it vanilla? Because he had 13 different line combinations. I think he had to scale his playbook back so much because the offensive line had, you had undrafted rookie free agents starting next to each other. I mean, so he had but I think that Nick Sirianni, who has a wide receiver coach background, is going to get more from these wideouts than what Peterson got from these guys.
Agreed. But again, I don't want to be pessimistic. I look at
You're
this
allowed
team.
to be, by the way.
Yeah, well, because again, we're talking about a rookie head coach. We're talking about a starting quarterback that, yes, had some time last year, but now it's, in essence, it's his team, right? We're saying it's his team this year to see how can he develop as a quarterback. There's a lot of questions about this team going into this year. And for that reason, I think there will be steps that will be increased for this team, right? I think there's going to be progression, but I still can't see them getting to the 500 mark this year. I just can't see it, Mike. And as I look at these other teams around them that they're going to play, I think these teams have either stayed the same or gotten better as I look at the schedule. And I know you said it's the weakest schedule based on the records last year, that's a positive for the Eagles.
Well,
I still think it's just going to be tough.
You look, Todd, Atlanta won 4 games last year. San Francisco won 6 games last year. But why did they only win 6 games? Well, they had a lot of injury issues. They had COVID problems. Dallas won 6 games last year. Why? Well, They lost their quarterback. Carolina won 5 games. Why? Because they're not very good. Vegas won 8
McCaffrey
games.
Was gone, but they didn't have McCaffrey for a good chunk of that year. Yeah,
that is true. That's true. Vegas won 8 games. I think they're just an average team again. Detroit won 5 games last year. Los Angeles won, I think, 4 or 5.
Yeah, but that Chargers team's a scary team. That coach was bad. I mean, I'm going to just come out and say it. They got a great quarterback, and that coach was. I watched every game out here on the West Coast, Mike. His decisions at late in games were tragic. I mean, terrible. Yeah. I couldn't believe they didn't get rid of him.
You're right. No, I think that's a team that is going, like when you say, okay, you're looking at this schedule, that's a team that I think is better. Now, Denver, they won 5 games last year.
And now what? Teddy Bridgewater, we're assuming, is going to be their starter, right?
Correct.
Again, we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing yet. He could end up in Denver. He's
the wild card, right?
He is the wild card.
Right.
But
last year, Philly beat New Orleans last year. And New Orleans will not have Breeze this year. So I think New Orleans is going to go from a 12-win team maybe down to what? Like a 10-win team.
Yeah, and I'm not scared of Jameis Winston if that's their starter. I like the Eagles in that game. Don't get me wrong.
And then here's the interesting point, Todd. The last, from week 12 on, actually after week 10, when Philly plays at Denver, they do not have to travel again on a plane. Every trip is a bus trip. They play at the Giants, at the Jets. So they're there for 2 straight weeks up at MetLife Stadium. Then they have a bye week, and then they play in the division, Washington, New York, Washington, Dallas. So the interesting part there is they have 5 division games right around Thanksgiving. So you're going to stay in this thing conceivably until that point. I mean, you could just be like 3-6. You're going to have all those division games.
Well, this is going to be the key, Mike, because that's why I'm looking at those first 8 games. If you start the season 2-6, there's just no way you recover from that. The second half of the year, I can see them going even 6-2, or but if you're 1-7 to start the year, you're done.
Right.
And
Yeah, and you're saying, okay, you're at Atlanta. They're a 3.5-point underdog for the opener. So they're an underdog in that game.
Right.
So, but that's a game that if you want to have a good season, you've got to get that kind of game. Then you're at home. You beat San Francisco last year. You got to try to figure out a way at home. And then you play. Okay, so let's say you lose at home to San Francisco, but then you're playing Dallas. Those games are always the coin flips. You got to steal one against Dallas, figure it out. You're not going to beat Kansas City. But then it's like, all right, I played Carolina. That's a team that's not all that special. Can I get that game? So can you find a way to kind of be a game or two around 500 before you hit that stretch of games late?
Right. When I look at those first 8 games, I would look at Atlanta as the games you got to try and get. Atlanta. I would say Dallas. I would say Carolina. I would say Vegas. I would say Lions. Those are the ones you almost have to clean sweep those, Mike, to give yourself an opportunity. Because again, I think you're losing to the Chargers in week 9.
The part is, Todd, and we say this now. Last year, when you looked at that Eagles schedule, you didn't think they were going to beat San Francisco and New Orleans. They only won 4 games, and 2 of them, one was against the defending NFC champions, and the other one was against New Orleans last year.
Well, isn't it funny how that works, right? Because Tampa Bay may take a week off when they play the Eagles and think, we'll get this one. Don't worry about it.
Keep in mind, Todd, that game is funny because it's on a Thursday night in Philly. So the teams that play at home on Thursday nights, they win those games a lot of times because of the short week.
Yeah, well, it gives them a fighting chance, right? With that kind of a schedule and how it's set up. The one thing I hate, Mike, and I told you this prior to us being on the show today, is that week 14 bye. I mean, I think for a young coach, young quarterback, trying to get your feet grounded, having a bye so late in the year, Mike, doesn't allow you time to take a deep breath and recover if, in fact, you get punched in the face early in the season. So I'm afraid by then it's too late. I mean, if you got that bye week in 14 and you're looking at a record of what, 4, 5, and 8 or something like, you're in trouble. Or 4 and 9. I hate that bye week being that late, Mike.
Yeah, I agree with that too. How about this situation? How about Washington, by the way? So Washington plays 5 straight NFC East games to close the season out. I've never seen that before.
No. And do you like it? Because I think if I'm the Eagles, I would love to have that. I mean, they're kind of close. Look, they got a lot of those games coming down the stretch. But to have 5 in-division games, we know what happened in the NFCs last year, right? I mean, you were under 500, you'll still have a shot to win the division. The key is going to be, do I still have a shot to win the division? And when you got 5 division games late in the year, you've had time for your team to kind of mesh, get to know each other. If you got young players, get them acclimated. And then you've got those 5 games that basically you can say, hey, guys, this is our season. Don't worry about what we did. If we win these, we're going to win the division.
Right. If you're Washington and you get to that point and you're 500, you can then rip off or right around 500. I don't like this extra 17th game because that 500, you're no longer able to be 500 anymore, right?
Right. I mean, now what do you think? I mean, we had talked before the show, and actually I had given you a number before I even really detailed the schedule. You know, I'm looking at this schedule, and earlier I told you I'm thinking 7 and 10 at best. As I'm looking at this schedule now, Mike, I think a 6 and 11 is the best I see with this team. Now, again, I know they're saying this schedule is the easiest in the NFL. When I put all the different factors together, I'm seeing 6 and 11. That's just what I see. You've got them over 500.
No, I mean, I really haven't gone through it like that. But I mean, I think 1, Atlanta, 2, Carolina, 3, Vegas, 4, Detroit, 5, Denver, 6, Chargers, 7, Jets. Those 7 games, I think, are games that are winnable games. Then you got to try to steal one with like San Francisco and New Orleans. I think those are the games. You're not beating Kansas City or Tampa. And then the division games. There's where it comes down to. So you have 7 winnables, 2 other games that you can try to steal. So I think the best case scenario is, and I've said this before, I think the best case scenario is they get to 10. The more likely scenario is they're probably around 8.
So right in that 9, 8, 8, 9 range, right there.
Yeah, I
with
mean,
the 17 games now.
look, I look at it like this, dude. That offensive line is the biggest difference maker for me. One, they have a nice, and I think one thing I think is Sirianni. I think you're going to see them run the ball a lot more with this older veteran offensive line, and they just brought in 2 running backs. They brought back Jordan Howard and they brought in Kerryon Johnson. These are 2 bigger running backs. They have Miles Sanders. I think you're going to see them run the ball behind that line, not ask Hurts to do a lot. Use the play action with this Devonta Smith and try to let him kind of get one-on-one and use the running game. Now, they need to find a cornerback bad. If they don't find a corner, they're going to be in some big trouble.
Well, and looking back at the quarterback and how he plays the position, when you talk about that offensive line for the run game, that's one thing. For pass protection, it's different, especially with a quarterback. Do we see him as a quarterback that's going to roll out a lot? Do we think he's going to come outside of that pocket? Because if he does, then that's where the pass protection to some extent matters. But those guys at the line don't know which way he's going if he's not staying back in that pass protection pocket. If he starts to roll and keeps sliding out, then it's anybody's game, right? I mean, it's a free-for-all, really.
Well, I mean, look, the games he played last year that he played well in, the game against New Orleans, he played pretty well. Some of the games he played well for a half, and then in the second half they made adjustments. He needs to come out, but I think him and getting a guy that he's familiar with, Devonta Smith, they played together at Alabama. I think that will help him. But to me, you were a big Tebow guy. Hurts is that type of leader where people just gravitate towards him. They want to play for him. He almost reminds me of like Russell Wilson, where Wilson's a better leader than he is a quarterback. That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback, but it's his leadership that almost draws you to Wilson as this great quarterback. That's the way Hurts is. Like, he is just, every guy wants to play for this guy.
No, it's important. And again, I don't want to put Russell Wilson in the same talk with Hurts or Tebow. But to your point, what I liked about Tebow back in the day was there was a magic to him, right? There was something about it. We knew his skill set wasn't at any level equal to even a good quarterback. But there was magic within him, and people ran towards him, right? They wanted to run with him. And I think Hurts has that same vibe. The key is going to be, he's obviously got more talent at the quarterback position than Tebow did. The question will be, how much more, right? How much more does he have? And again, I think Devonta Smith is a huge pickup because of the familiarity and, quite frankly, the talent that Devonta Smith has.
Oh, you got that. And by the way, the interesting thing will be, I think Sirianni, we had this conversation earlier. Doug Peterson, I think, did a bad job with younger players. He did not do a good job developing the younger talent. When he had the established talent, they won the Super Bowl. But if you go back to that Super Bowl team, Todd, they had no younger players on that team. Like, that team was older, established players. I don't think there was a rookie other than Corey Clement, who was like the 3rd running back, that really had a role on that team. And people keep saying, well, the team hasn't drafted well. Did they not draft well, or did he not do a good job developing younger players? And I think Nick Sirianni, again, a wide receiver background coach, he's going to get more out of Rager. I think he'll get more out of Fulgham. I think he'll get more out of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, for God's sakes, than what Peterson was able to get out of him. I think Peterson did a bad job last year utilizing the talent, the younger talent that he had.
Well, and you've been over there. You're obviously closer to it than I am. Other than that press conference, which wasn't the greatest, has the interviews, have you seen more of him?
Tomorrow.
You talk to him tomorrow?
He'll talk tomorrow, Sirianni.
Okay, so, I mean, but have you heard from the inside anybody? I mean, what are people's thoughts overall as they're starting to get used to him?
It's hard because the reporters aren't allowed in the building still.
Right. Well, hey, good news today, right? I mean, some masks are coming off. So
it appears to be.
Right. So little by little, hopefully that'll start to get a little more information for you to be able to give back to us and the listeners.
In fact, I don't know what the guidelines are for the reporters to cover this rookie minicamp, which starts tomorrow. All the rookies are in town. The minicamp starts tomorrow. Sirianni's supposed to talk tomorrow. He really hasn't, done much. So tomorrow he'll talk, and I guess each day after these minicamps, which start Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I think is the 4-day rookie minicamp. So we'll probably hear from him each day after that. But hey, look, I definitely think they still need help on defense in terms of they need a corner opposite Slay. There's no question about that. They are ill-equipped there. But if they can get a corner, their defense is going to be a completely different look with Schwartz gone. So that's
Right.
we have no idea what to expect there.
It's
All
an
right.
unknown. Yeah.
We got some NBA stuff we want to get into. This play. All right, so hang in there. We'll be back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app brought to you by East Coast Roofing, Siding, Windows, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Online, eastcoastroofing.com. Todd Ranck is here. We're back with more on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. All right, here we go. Sixers and Heat tonight. You can hear the game on 97.3 ESPN. You like that Heat team, or are you everybody's like, I can't believe in the Heat? I mean, we went to the finals last year where they had product of the bubble. You like that Heat team?
Well, if they're matched up with the Hawks in the first round, which I think right now that it looks like they will be, I like them. There's no question.
You like that Hawks team?
No, I like the Heat. No, I like that Heat team. Now, granted, I don't think they're going to make it to the finals like they did last year, but I do think they've still got enough talent. They got a lot of the nucleus. And now you got a team like, Boston who loses Jaylen Brown. And, you just never know what can happen these last couple games. People get injured first game of the series. You just don't know. So the Heat got that grit. You know what I'm saying, Mike? Like there's that grit that team always has. And Butler, I mean, you guys know better than ever. You know who Butler is. And he just has that kind of focus. When you get into the playoffs, you gotta muddy it up a little bit. That team can do it. And if they can hit their threes, they got a shot.
Right. I mean, tonight's interesting. You got Sixers Heat tonight. You're right. It's Atlanta the 4, Miami's the 5, New York is the 6, but they're all separated by a half a game. So, that's why the Sixers getting the 1 seed is so important, because if they get the 1 seed in round 1, they would play Boston, Charlotte, Indiana, or Washington. And then in round 2, they would get either Atlanta, New York, or Miami. And then you would face Brooklyn or Milwaukee in round 3. That's a big difference.
Well, who would you, again, I know everybody's going to have them heavily favored for the first round, but who of those 4 do you not want to see in the first round?
It's got to be that Washington team, right?
Right. And so I was going to say again, I don't think in the long run they're going to be able to sustain and win 4 of 7 against the Sixers, but they're the hottest of those teams right now, right? Charlotte is an interesting team though, Mike.
You like that Charlotte?
I'm telling you, there's something different. There's something interesting about that team. I don't think 1, 2, or 3 are going to have a huge, difficult time getting through the first round, but there could be some interesting, fun matchups. I think Charlotte's a fun team to watch and who they would match up against. I do think the Wizards, just because of the sheer talent and stardom of Beal and Westbrook, it makes for an exciting and fun first round.
That's the thing is like the Sixers are a good defensive team, but Washington, I mean, these games lately have been like 154, every night there's 130. It looks like the 1980s playing some of these games. Those West Coast games, the Phoenix Suns taking on the Trailblazers.
It's insanity. No, the scoring is insane. I watch it with Portland out here. And some of these guys, the Warriors, although the Warriors actually haven't been heavily scoring. Again, they don't have Klay Thompson and all, but it's going to be fun to see. The interesting part I'm seeing out here on the West Coast is it going to be the Lakers and the Warriors in a play-in game? That's what it's more and more. That's what it's looking like.
That's what you're getting, I believe. You're going to get that. Well, this. Golden State plays Memphis on the last day of the year. The winner of that game might be the team that plays the Lakers.
Right. And realistically, you still want to play the Lakers because even if you lose to the Lakers, being the ace seed, you get a second game to try and get in.
Yeah. So, this thing is wonky, but you're right. You could say, well, I don't want to play the Lakers in that first game. So you would lose the game to the Lakers, but then that means you would have to win 2 games to get to be the 8th seed.
Right. You still are going to, one way or another, you've got to play a team of that 7 and 8. Why not play the Lakers? If you lose to them, you're playing the winner of the 9-10. I'd rather be in that position. There isn't much of it. I mean, the reality is the 9 and 10, you got to win 2 games. If you're a 7-8, you've only got to win 1 game, and that's the key.
Right. Well, so the Lakers right now, it essentially feels like the Lakers have just kind of said, hey, we will be the 7th because we want to play a couple games to keep playing games to get ready for the playoff. Like that's the way they're kind of setting it up, because that being in that play-in tournament means they get to play on a couple games. Because if you don't make the play-in tournament, you're sitting out for the whole week.
You are, but this is an interesting part you're talking about here because, Anthony Davis stayed in the game late the other night, and his hamstrings hurt. I mean, he's got injuries all over the place. So they didn't take him out because he said, we need to win this game to try and move up into that 6. Last night, they let a lot of the starters sit, but it was only because they were playing Houston Rockets, who aren't even an NBA team. They got through that game and won by 2 points, but they were able to rest Anthony Davis, which they needed to. Now it comes down to these final 2 games, and they're in a position where I think it's the Trailblazers. Their last 2 games are not easy. I think they play the Suns, and then the last game, who is it?
Right. Portland plays. They had Utah, Phoenix, and Denver were their last 3 games.
It's brutal. So now, granted, they just won the last game, but if they can beat one of those 2 teams, Portland will make it in. But again, the schedule-wise, the Lakers have the easier schedule, but they're one game behind Portland.
Well,
So
that's where Philly's interesting because they are a game and a half up with 3 to play. They play Miami tonight. If they lose that game, they still only have to win one of their last 2 games, and they play Orlando twice.
Right. So you would assume, let's just say, worst case scenario, they split those games with Orlando.
Didn't even travel to Miami.
I mean, this is where we're at.
I mean, they got a poor product, this NBA. They're just saying, guys, I'm not going to play.
Well, and I'm interested in that, Mike. Is Embiid basically deferring then? Because I was going to bring up the conversation about the MVP, right? I'm on the West Coast. I think Steph Curry and what he's done and able to keep this team in the playoffs. I know everybody wants to say they're number 8. Whatever. I don't care.
Well, now
I don't care.
Come on. Now you got to start like Russell Westbrook won the MVP a couple of years ago based on the fact that he averaged a triple-double. Well, he's averaging 1 again, and his team's going to make the playoffs. So should you just give it to him?
Well, of course not. He's not playing. Look, you can look. If you're looking at the body of work.
Look, for that Steph Curry for the fact that he got that team to the playoffs. Well, Russell Westbrook's averaging a triple-double, and he gets his team to the playoffs.
But are you watching these games and how he's going about it? You got to watch the product. You got to watch what he's doing. You're asleep by the end of the first quarter over there. Don't pretend with me. This guy has been unbelievable. I think the Philly fans want Embiid to have it. I want Curry to have it. Jokic is going to end up getting it. But I just think
I'll tell you what, though. I
was
like 3 weeks ago when Murray got hurt. I said, because everybody said Jokic is the favorite. I said, if they stick where they are, I got to give it to Jokic because Murray's a big key for them, and they have not moved out of that 4 spot. He has kept that team there.
I can't argue if he gets it.
I mean, he's averaging 29 points. He's almost averaging a triple-double, for God's sakes.
You know what the problem is? And I'm going to be honest with you and the listeners. I'm going to be honest with what I don't like. It's just Jokic, look, he's a talent. He's very good. But I don't love the game. Like, I like excitement, right? You tried to tell me Embiid's as exciting to watch as Curry. That was a joke. I mean, that was embarrassing for you to say that. Embiid's a great player. But you're not watching Embiid like you're watching must-see TV with Curry.
You got to watch him every night. He gives you stuff that you never see. The gentleman's 7'2".
I don't care, Mike. He's not doing what I'm watching with Curry.
Well,
it's simply not the same.
Right. You're watching for something different. I'm watching for the fact that there's a gentleman who's 7'2" that does something that he shouldn't be doing at that size. He simply shouldn't be doing it at that size.
They might say the same about Jokic, but my point is, but
Jokic,
that's not.
By the way, Todd, Jokic is averaging 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 8.5 assists. Not to mention, he's got a steal and a half a game.
It's impressive. But what I will say is against your point where if Murray goes down and they sustain, my point to you on the contrary would be, well, he's getting more touches. Murray's not even in the game anymore. He's going to get those things.
Yeah, but guess what? It's not about his numbers anymore. Now he's had those numbers. But you say, all right, how important is he to his team? Oh, they lost Murray, and they're still winning.
Well, do we give any credit to the complement of players around him, though, for stepping up?
The fact that people said when Murray got hurt, oh, Denver's done. They're out of it. They're not. They've stuck right in there. And I got to give that credit to that Jokic. They've won 7 out of 10.
That's fine, but that's not what people are saying. They're saying they don't have a shot in the playoffs, and I would agree with that. There's no way they're making it to the NBA Finals.
Season award. You're better than that.
No, well, you're talking about MVP, but I'm just saying the comments you said where they were saying, oh, they're going to be dead without Murray. What most people were saying is they're going to be dead in the playoffs.
Well, I mean, they could have fell flat on their face down the stretch here and dropped from the 4 seed to the play-in tournament, for God's sakes. Murray's a pretty important player for them. By the way, Embiid averaging 29 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block and a half.
Look, I don't dispute the numbers. The numbers are very, very nice. And again, competing. But when you're looking at an MVP and you're looking at a season, I think when we look at MVPs, yes, you're looking at the entire season, of course, but you're also looking at your last impression of that player. And I think that's key, and it's important. That what are they doing? What have you done for me lately? And what Curry ended up doing the last month and a half of this season is almost unprecedented.
You just said it right there. He only did it for a month and a half.
Well, he didn't. He's the scoring leader of the league right now, Mike. You're better than that.
Well, I'm just saying. You just said it right there, though. What he's done for the last month and a half. He wasn't playing at this bonkers of a level the whole season.
Well, but you just said it. He's playing bonkers. He's not even playing at MVP status. He's playing at bonkers status. I've never seen anything like it. This guy's coming into games hitting 8 to 10 threes every game. And these are normal threes, Mike. We've watched the NBA. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, he's pulling up from all over the place.
He's not even pulling up, Mike. It's like half a second is all the room he needs to release the ball.
It's unconscionable how quick he can pull up from how far he can pull up.
And what looks to be a heave by you or me, we would just be heaving it at the basket. And he's not hitting rim, Mike. It's just, I've never seen anything. I mean, we can all say clearly now, we're watching the greatest shooter we've ever seen play the game. I'm sorry.
I agree with that. I say Curry is the best shooter I've ever seen. He's from how far and the quickness that he gets it off. Never seen a better shooter.
And he's got more than that to his game now. He's evolved as a player. But, when we would argue that maybe a year or two ago, I think, and maybe this is a point to Clay not being on the team this year. We're clearly able to see it now that he came back after he was injured. There was a lot of things where everybody could argue maybe Steph wasn't. I don't even think anybody, they've gone and tucked their heads away. There's not even a conversation anymore. This is unbelievable to watch.
It is. And by the way, Jokic is probably going to win. Embiid's probably going to be number 2. But we were talking about this the other day. The top 5 candidates for MVP, 4 of them are non-American players. How about that?
Does that mean if you're drafted next year, maybe you go looking in other directions?
Well, my point is, when we were growing up, USA basketball, we just win in the Olympics all the time. And it was but now the best players in the league, I mean, you have Jokic, Embiid, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Luka Doncic. They are the top 4, and Curry. The last top 5 list I saw was those 5. Curry was the 4th guy. Doncic was the 5th guy.
And I would agree with that. I think the place in which they're going to land is going to be different than that order. I think Curry has a good shot to end up being number 2 because of the push he had at the end of the year.
Well, and so right now, if the playoffs were to be tonight, that play-in game, right, you get those Lakers and Warriors in that first game on that Tuesday night.
And the key, Mike, is everybody's just assuming magically that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are going to play and they're going to be healthy and they're going to be fine and everything's going to be great. That's not, I don't know that that's 100% yet, Mike. So this is going to be interesting. I don't know if this Lakers team is going to be able to put the full complement of starters on that floor.
Right. Well, that LeBron, he played 1 game the other night and then sat out again the next 2? Was that the way that he kind of did it?
Exactly. And again, based on the competition, maybe they said, all right, let's whoa, right? But I think they got to get him out there.
They've won 3 in a row. I mean, that play-in group, think about this. The play-in tournament, I guess it has added, I think it's a little gimmicky, but it's definitely added some intrigue to these final couple games here.
There's no question about it. And that whole thing about teams wanting to lose to get out, it's not that way anymore, right? These teams, I mean, I'm watching a league where the 8, 9, and 10 teams, and even 11 are fighting. Like they're playing hard to try and get into this playoff. So for that purpose, I think it is a definite benefit to the league overall.
Then you got Houston's lost 7, Oklahoma City's lost 8, Detroit's lost 3, Orlando's lost 4, the Raptors have lost 4. I mean, some of the bad teams, they are really wretchedly bad.
Well, you want to look a little deeper into that Houston. You said they've lost 7. They've lost 44 of the last 48, I believe, overall.
Wow.
It's bad. It's real bad with Houston. So, again, we knew that was going to happen, unfortunately, for them. But,
Hey, do Do you know any Kings fans, any LA Kings fans?
Me personally?
I mean, you're out in LA. Do you know people are like, hey, you want to go to the Kings game? Or you're like, is there a guy in your circle who's like that? He's the Kings guy. Like everybody has Joe random hockey fan. Over here, we have a lot of them.
Yes.
Out there, I mean, anybody care about the Kings?
I don't want to say out here they don't care about the Kings, but in my circle, nobody cares about the Kings.
I mean, you don't know one guy that says Kings game tonight.
Not one.
Wow.
Not one. Ducks, Anaheim Ducks, not one.
Ducks fans. Oh, I was going to say
not one. No, I'm saying in my circle, not one.
You have a Clipper fan out there.
Clippers, we've got many. Clippers, we do. There's more Clippers fans in my circle than there are Lakers fans.
How about that? Why do you have like more transplant? Although the transplants, you would think they would gravitate to the Lakers because they're the national team.
Yeah, no. From my circle, they're more dedicated NBA fans. They're more so that they're into the players and who they are, right? It's not about, oh, purple and gold, I'm in LA, I want to be a Lakers fan. It's more about Kawhi, they followed his career. PG, they're rooting for him to finally get one. Things like that they're bringing the teams together. It really isn't a matter of are the Clippers better than the Lakers this year. It's more about really just the complement of players and what they're rooting for. So,
all right,
we'll see.
Week 1, a couple opening lines for you. All right. Tampa Bay favored by 6 over Dallas.
That game's in Dallas.
Tampa Bay, come on, they're the Super Bowl champions playing on opening night. I'd like you to know that.
Well, then I'm taking Tampa Bay.
To 6.
Well, the way in which you worded it sounded like Tampa Bay going to Dallas.
Dallas is at Tampa. It's a 6-point spread.
Well, here's the problem. I would take Tampa Bay without a thought, but it feels already like a trap by the bookies.
You go that route already. All right. Here's a good one. There's some good games this week 1.
No, there really are.
They go Steelers, Bills by 6.
I think I like the Steelers to cover that. I do. I just think
Buffalo.
It's the questioning of Ben, right? How does he come back? How does he look? Everybody's a little bit maybe too high on the Bills. It's the first game of the year. Everybody's getting used to each other again. I think that 6 points I would probably lean to the Steelers to cover.
Those are big numbers, right? You got Sam Darnold facing his former team in week 1. Carolina's favored by 4.
Wow, favored by 4. That's McCaffrey healthy. I'll take Carolina.
All right, you got, let's see what else is interesting here. How about Chargers on the road at Washington are a favorite, 1.5.
Ooh, those home dogs, first week of the year.
I mean, that's the defending. By the way, that Washington football team nearly beat Tampa Bay in those playoffs last year.
Well, again, we're talking about last year, and it was a lot of different.
Well, that defense that Washington team brings to the table,
very strong.
Right, that's a defense right there. I mean, that defense shuts down that Seth Curry.
I mean, new. I'm going to say this: new coach for the Chargers. I just love Herbert. I just think he is really a star in the making. I'm going to lean Chargers. I think their offense is too good for that defense. And don't get me wrong, I love the defense for Washington, but yeah. I think Chargers get that win.
All right, Seattle at Indianapolis. Carson Wentz makes his debut against Seattle. -2.5. Colts are favored.
Colts are favored in this one.
2.5.
Wow.
First 5 games of the year for Indianapolis are against teams that won 10 or more games last year.
Wow. I mean, Indianapolis was such a good team last year, but the unknown of the quarterback, right? I mean, we don't know. We just don't know yet. And I think Carson's going to play much better this year for Indianapolis, but I don't know that you expect him to play that well out of the gates. I mean, I think he needs a couple of games.
Yeah.
You got Russell Wilson. Man, I mean, you're begging me to take Wilson +2.5. You're begging me. Yeah, maybe I tease that one. Maybe I tease that.
Little teaser, right? Go teaser. I mean, there's a lot of good games, too, we didn't get to. There's Green Bay, New Orleans. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there.
No clue.
Cleveland, Kansas City, got Miami, Patriots. Last one. Philly is underdog 3.5 against the Falcons.
Oh, man, they give you that hook, don't they? They give you the hook. Because I do think the Eagles, unfortunately, are going to lose this game, but Do they keep it close? I mean, that Atlanta team, they were losing close ones. They win a close one by a field goal. Just because we have a lot of Philly fans on here, I'm going to take the Eagles plus 3.5.
Well, that game, you have plenty of time to think about it. That game's September 12th.
Hey, and I told you in PG, I'll be in that Vegas for week 12, baby. I booked it today.
You go to that Eagles-Raiders game.
Eagles-Giants. No, I'm just going to go the sports book. It's
Eagles-Giants. You're going to be in Vegas, you say.
I'm going to be in Vegas. First time back in Vegas since the all this COVID. I said I feel good about November, birthday, Thanksgiving weekend, Eagles at Giants, week 12. It should be a good one. It should be fun.
All right, there we go.
Why don't you come join me? You and PG, come on out.
I've never been to Vegas still.
Unbelievable to me. It's sacrilegious is what it is. It's awful.
Maybe. All right, we'll see you next week.
All right, buddy.
All right, that's the Ranck Report with Todd Ranck, our former Sports Bash co-host right here on 97.3 ESPN. We'll finish out the show next. All right, here we go. We'll get a couple sounds of the day in. Josh Henning is my producer. He picked these sounds out today. And let's see. Adam Caplan, how many games are winnable on the Eagles' schedule?
Quite frankly, I look at the teams that they're playing. I count 7 games that are severely winnable. Giants twice, Jets, Atlanta, Carolina, Raiders, Detroit. And then Chargers actually 8. And then they're going to have to find ways to steal a couple games if they want to be in the playoff on it.
7 winnables.
I think that's a significant number because of the fact that what's the over-under right now? It's 6, right? And a lot of these books 6.5. So if Adam is saying this is a 7 or 8 win team, that this team is already going to overachieve.
Well, if they want to get there, they need another corner.
Good luck with Eagles secondary as it is. Now, by then, they'll have new corners. They're gonna get some help for Darius Slay at some point. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be in 2 months. But they're going to have some more help. As teams always tell me, don't look at our team right now. Look at it in September. Then you could criticize us. So, okay. But fact of the matter is they cannot line up right now at outside corner opposite Slay. They just can't.
They can't do it. He's right. And Mike Hughes just got traded, so they're not going to be in that game either.
Yeah, I had no idea Mike Hughes was even available, Mike, honestly. I mean, that blew me over because that was a guy who was a highly touted guy coming out of college. The Vikings really liked him. Then he got injured. He's on the last year of his contract. So it's like, I had no idea he was even available.
Well,
but,
he seemed like the guy that the Eagles have been going after this offseason.
The Jonathan Gannon people.
Yeah, and Anthony Harris, a guy that they got on the cheap.
Yeah.
Eric Wilson, a guy that they got on the cheap. Now, Mike Hughes, I didn't see what the trade was.
They swapped late round picks.
That's the kind of trade, though, that Howie Roseman typically would make.
Right, which makes you wonder, was he actually available, or was this kind of like only 2 teams having a conversation kind of deal?
Right, exactly, because I didn't heard his name
at all.
And then all of a sudden it was like, well, there's another guy off the table for you.
And it's like, wait, was he even on the table?
But that's the kind of trade that is still out there for them probably somewhere.
Right. And I think that's what keeps it interesting, and that is there's going to be a guy, or it might be a guy who gets cut after June 1st. The June 1st cuts are always happen every year. There's always an interesting name out there.
All right, that's it right there is the show, the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up at 6:20, Kevin McCormick, our Sixers contributor, will join the show. They're in Miami tonight. Will Jimmy Butler play? He's going to go through warm-ups. They're most likely, I don't even think Joel Embiid is in Florida, so I don't think you're going to see Joel Embiid play tonight. If the Sixers win, they will clinch the number 1 seed in the East. And if that's the case, well, tomorrow should be an interesting day. Phillies lose 5-1. For more on the Eagles' schedule, go to 973ESPN.com. I'm Mike Gill. Josh Henning produced tonight's show. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody. Back tomorrow.